Some people just aren't meant for success, Marcus. My brother Trevor delivered this verdict with the casual cruelty of someone who had never questioned his place at the top of the world. He was sitting in our parents' living room, still wearing his expensive suit from his job at Meridian Financial, swirling a glass of wine that probably cost more than I made in a week at Burger King. I had just been fired. Again. This time for attitude problems and failure to follow corporate protocols, which translated to refusing to work an unpaid double shift when my manager decided to leave early for his golf game. Maybe it's time to face reality, Trevor continued, his Harvard MBA confidence radiating across the room like heat from a furnace. Not everyone is cut out for the corporate world. There's no shame in settling for something more suitable to your abilities. My mother nodded sympathetically. Trevor's right, dear. Maybe you should consider trade school. Or community college. Something more practical. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. The same man who had attended every one of Trevor's soccer games, graduation ceremonies, and job celebrations couldn't be bothered to make eye contact with his younger son on what was arguably one of the worst days of my life. I was 22 years old, a college dropout with a resume that read like a tour of entry-level disappointments. Pizza delivery driver, fired for being late, retail sales associate, fired for poor customer service, and now former Burger King employee, fired for having principles, apparently. Trevor, meanwhile, was 25 and already a vice president at one of the city's most prestigious financial firms. Harvard undergraduate, Harvard MBA, corner office with windows overlooking downtown Seattle. He had everything our parents had dreamed of: success, respect, and a salary that made their investment in his education look like the bargain of the century. The difference between us, Trevor said, standing up to refill his wine glass, is that I understand what it takes to succeed in the real world. Strategy, networking, playing the game correctly. You've always been too idealistic. Idealistic. That was Trevor's favorite way of describing my various character flaws. When I quit the pizza job because my manager was stealing tips from drivers, I was being idealistic. When I got fired from retail for refusing to pressure elderly customers into buying extended warranties they didn't need, I was being idealistic. When I walked out of college because I couldn't afford tuition and my professor seemed more interested in publishing papers than teaching students, I was being idealistic. Maybe you're right, I said quietly, setting down my beer, cheap domestic from a can, in sharp contrast to Trevor's boutique wine selection. Maybe I'm just not meant for this. Trevor smiled with satisfaction, the same expression he'd worn since childhood whenever he successfully proved his superiority. The sooner you accept your limitations, the happier you'll be. There's dignity in knowing your place. I left my parents' house that night with $57 in my checking account, no job prospects, and a growing certainty that I was exactly the failure everyone believed me to be. But I also left with something else, a burning determination to prove that success couldn't be measured by Harvard degrees and corner offices alone. The next morning, I did something that would change the trajectory of my entire life. Instead of looking for another dead-end job, I spent my last $50 on business registration fees and officially became the owner of Phoenix Services LLC, a one-man operation with no employees, no office, and no clear business plan. What I did have was a willingness to work harder than anyone else and a complete lack of pride about the type of work I was willing to do. I started by offering handyman services, painting, basic repairs, yard work, moving assistance. Anything people needed done, I would do for a fair price and with absolute reliability. My first client was Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman whose gutters needed cleaning. She paid me $40, and I used 20 of it to buy flyers that I hand-delivered to every house in her neighborhood. By the end of the week, I had 6 more clients. Within a month, I was earning more money than I had at any of my previous jobs. More importantly, I was learning something that my business school-educated brother had never grasped: success isn't about impressive credentials or corner offices. It's about solving problems for people who are willing to pay you to solve them. I reinvested every penny back into the business. Better tools, a used truck, liability insurance, business cards that looked professional instead of photocopied. When clients started asking if I could handle larger projects, I taught myself carpentry, plumbing, and electrical work through YouTube videos and library books. Trevor, meanwhile, was climbing the corporate ladder at Meridian Financial. He moved into a luxury apartment, bought a BMW, and started dating women who looked like they belonged in magazine advertisements. Our parents couldn't stop talking about his success, the business trips, the important meetings, the salary increases. At family dinners, they would ask Trevor about his work with genuine interest and admiration. They would ask me about mine with the polite concern usually reserved for discussing someone's medical condition. "Still doing the handyman thing?" my mother would ask. "Still building my business," I would correct her. "That's nice, dear." "Trevor, tell us about your promotion." By my second year, Phoenix Services had grown beyond handyman work. I was hiring subcontractors for larger projects, bidding on commercial jobs, and slowly building a reputation for quality work at fair prices. I was also learning about business in ways that no MBA program could teach, through trial and error, customer feedback, and the daily reality of profit and loss. Trevor's career was also progressing smoothly. He'd been promoted twice, acquired several important clients, and was being fast-tracked for senior management. Our parents had started dropping hints about grandchildren and whether Trevor's current girlfriend might be the one. "You know," Trevor said during one particularly uncomfortable family dinner, "Marcus could probably do some maintenance work for my building. I could put in a word with the property management company." The condescension in his offer was unmistakable. The successful Harvard MBA throwing a bone to his struggling blue-collar brother. "Thanks," I said, "but I'm pretty busy with my current contracts." He laughed. "Right. Well, the offer stands if you ever need some steady work." What Trevor didn't know was that Phoenix Services had just landed its biggest contract yet, a complete renovation of a small office building downtown. The project would net over $200,000 in revenue and establish us as a serious player in the commercial construction market. But I didn't mention that. Let him think I was still cleaning gutters for $40 a day. By year 5, Phoenix Services employed 15 people and had completed over $1 million in projects. I'd expanded into property management, real estate development, and general contracting. I owned the building where my business was headquartered, drove a truck that was paid for in cash, and had a 6-figure bank account. Trevor was still at Meridian Financial, now as a senior vice president with his own team and a salary that our parents quoted like a sports statistic. He'd married the magazine advertisement girlfriend and bought a house in the suburbs that looked exactly like every other house in their planned community. At 30, I started looking into acquisition opportunities. Phoenix Services had grown large enough to purchase smaller companies, and I was particularly interested in firms that were struggling financially but had good underlying assets. That's when I learned about Meridian Financial's problems. The 2008 financial crisis had hit the industry hard, but Meridian had made particularly poor decisions in the years leading up to the collapse. Risky investments, over-leveraged positions, and a culture of short-term thinking had left them vulnerable when the market turned. By 2010, they were hemorrhaging money and clients. By 2012, they were quietly shopping for buyers or investors who could inject enough capital to keep them solvent. I spent 6 months conducting due diligence on Meridian Financial. Their client list was impressive, their brand had value, and their office building was worth more than their asking price for the entire company. Most importantly, they had something I found irresistible: my brother's complete confidence that they were too important to fail. The acquisition took another year to complete. Lawyers, accountants, regulatory approvals, and financing arrangements. The final purchase price was $3 million, financed through a combination of Phoenix Services assets, bank loans, and private investors who believed in my business track record. On a Tuesday morning in September 2013, I walked into the Meridian Financial offices as the new owner. Trevor was in a meeting with potential clients, trying to salvage an account that was threatening to leave due to the company's ongoing instability. I waited in his corner office, the same office he'd described to our parents countless times, with its view of the Seattle skyline and furniture that cost more than most people's cars. When he returned, he found me sitting behind his desk, reading through personnel files. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying the automatic authority of someone accustomed to being the most important person in any room. "This is a private office. You'll need to." He stopped mid-sentence when he recognized me. "Marcus, what are you doing here? How did you get past security?" I own the building now, I said calmly, not looking up from the file I was reading. Phoenix Services acquired Meridian Financial this morning. I thought I'd start with a tour of my new company. The color drained from Trevor's face. That's impossible. You're a handyman. I'm a business owner, I corrected him, and as of this morning, I'm your business owner. I opened his personnel file and spread it across the desk. This is interesting reading, Trevor. Your performance reviews are mixed, several client complaints, issues with team management, and a concerning pattern of missed targets over the past 2 years. There's been a recession, he said weakly. Everyone's numbers have been down. Not everyone's, I replied. Some people have been adapting, innovating, finding new ways to serve their clients. Others have been coasting on their past successes and making excuses when reality caught up with them. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the view that had once represented everything Trevor thought I could never achieve. You know what I learned building Phoenix Services? Success isn't about having the right degree or the right connections or the right family name. It's about solving problems, delivering value, and earning trust one client at a time. Trevor was silent, his Harvard MBA confidence evaporating like morning fog. I'm implementing some changes, I continued. New management structure, revised compensation plans, updated performance metrics. Most of the staff will be fine, they're good people who've been poorly led, but some positions will be redundant. You can't fire me, Trevor said, his voice rising with desperation. I'm a senior vice president. I have clients, responsibilities. I corrected him, past tense. Your clients will be reassigned to account managers who actually understand customer service. Your responsibilities will be distributed among people who take them seriously. I walked back to the desk and picked up a termination letter I'd prepared that morning. Effective immediately, your employment with Meridian Financial is terminated. You have 1 hour to clean out your office and return all company property. Trevor stared at the letter like it was written in a foreign language. This is about revenge, he said finally. You're doing this because of what I said years ago. This is petty and vindictive. No, I said, sitting back down in his chair. This is business. Your performance has been declining for 2 years. Your clients have been complaining about service quality. Your team has the lowest morale in the company. I'm making a personnel decision based on objective business criteria. I looked up at him, remembering the young man who had once sat in our parents' living room explaining why some people just weren't meant for success. But you're right about one thing, Trevor. This is about what you said years ago. You taught me an important lesson about limitations and knowing your place. You were absolutely right. Some people just aren't meant for success. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Trevor left that day carrying his personal belongings in a cardboard box, the same way countless other executives had left companies throughout his career. The difference was that this time, he was the one learning about dignity and knowing his place. Over the next 18 months, I rebuilt Meridian Financial from the ground up. New leadership, new systems, new culture focused on long-term relationships instead of short-term profits. The company returned to profitability within a year and started attracting the kind of clients that valued substance over flash. Phoenix Services, meanwhile, continued to grow. The Meridian acquisition had given us access to capital markets and high-net-worth clients who needed everything from property management to complete development projects. We were no longer just a construction company, we were a full-service real estate and financial services firm. 5 years after the acquisition, I received an invitation to speak at a Harvard Business School conference about entrepreneurship and business growth. The irony was perfect. The college dropout who had been dismissed as a failure was being asked to teach MBA students about success. I almost didn't go, but then I realized it was an opportunity to share something important with the next generation of business leaders. Success, I told the audience of Harvard MBAs, isn't about where you went to school or what degree you earned. It's not about your family connections or your starting salary. Success is about serving customers, solving problems, and building value over time. I told them about Phoenix Services, about starting with $50 and a willingness to clean gutters, about learning business through trial and error instead of case studies and theory. The most successful people I know, I concluded, are those who never stopped believing they could learn, grow, and improve. The least successful are those who thought their credentials exempted them from having to prove their worth every single day. After the speech, a young student approached me with a question. Mr. Phoenix, she said, what would you say to someone who's been told they're not meant for success? I thought about Trevor, about my parents, About all the people who had looked at my early failures and concluded that I was destined for mediocrity. I'd say that the people who tell you that are usually trying to convince themselves that success is about luck or privilege instead of work and persistence. Don't let their limitations become your limitations. Today, Phoenix Services employs over 200 people and generates more than $50 million in annual revenue. We own properties in 6 states, manage investment portfolios for dozens of clients, and continue to grow every year. Trevor found another job in financial services, though at a much smaller firm and for significantly less money than he'd been making at Meridian. Our parents still don't quite understand how their failure son became more successful than their Harvard MBA golden child, but they've stopped offering career advice. The corner office where Trevor once explained why some people aren't meant for success is now my office. I kept most of his furniture, but I added one new item, a small plaque on the desk that reads, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts." Sometimes people ask me if I ever regret how I handled Trevor's termination. The answer is simple: I treated him exactly the way any other underperforming employee would be treated. The fact that he was my brother who had once dismissed my potential only made the lesson more poetic. Family should be the people who believe in your dreams, not the ones who try to limit them. Success should be measured by what you build, not what degree you earned or what family you were born into. And sometimes, the greatest satisfaction comes not from proving others wrong, but from proving to yourself that you were always capable of more than anyone imagined. If you've ever been written off as a failure, if you've ever been told you're not meant for success, this story is for you. Remember that success belongs to those who are willing to work for it, not those who think they deserve it. Share this story if you believe that determination beats credentials every time, and subscribe for more stories about overcoming expectations, building something meaningful, and discovering that success looks different than what others might define for you.
The inheritance letter trembled in my hands as I stared at the zeros trailing across the page. $5 million, the kind of money that could secure Connor's future, the specialized care and education he desperately needed. But I already knew what would happen next. The same thing that always happened when money entered our family's orbit. My name is Peyton, and I've spent the last 8 years watching my family live like royalty off my hard work, while feeding me empty promises about helping my son. "Darling, you won't believe what just arrived." My mother Lucille's voice carried through the marble foyer of her unnecessarily massive house. The click of her Louboutins against the floor announced her approach before she appeared, perfectly coiffed as always. I quickly folded the letter and tucked it into my jacket pocket. "Mum, we need to talk about Connor's therapy bills." She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, honey, not now. The caterers just called about Saturday's garden party, and I simply must have your opinion on the menu." She pulled out her phone, already scrolling through options. "Mom, I'm serious. The specialized program costs—" "Peyton, please. You know we'll help with Connor when we can. But right now, your father and I have the club membership dues coming up, and Reagan's wedding shower to plan." She trailed off, distracted by something on her screen. I bit back the bitter taste in my mouth. The same club membership they'd been paying with my borrowed money for the past 3 years. The same promises they'd been making since Connor's diagnosis at age 3. "There you are," Reagan breezed in, designer shopping bags dangling from her arms. "Aunt Lucille, I found the perfect centerpieces for the shower. A little over budget, but they're absolutely divine." I watched them coo over crystal vases while my son's future sat heavy in my pocket. The same pocket I'd been emptying into their bank accounts for years, believing their promises that they'd help Connor when grandmother Regina's inheritance came through. "Did you hear about the inheritance?" Reagan asked suddenly, her eyes sharp despite her casual tone. "What inheritance?" Lucille's head snapped up. I forced a confused smile. "No, what inheritance?" The lie felt strange on my tongue, but something in Reagan's expression made me hold back. I'd seen that look before. The same one she wore when she convinced me to loan her money for her business venture that mysteriously never materialized. My phone buzzed, a text from Connor's teacher. "Connor had a difficult day. Need to discuss additional support services." "I should go," I said, standing up. "Connor needs me." "Oh, that boy," Lucille sighed. "If you just consider that residential facility we talked about." "He's not going to a facility, Mom. He needs specialized education and therapy, which you promised. We promise a lot of things, darling. Life is complicated. She turned back to Reagan. Now, about those centerpieces. I walked out, their voices fading behind me. In my car, I pulled out the inheritance letter again. Grandmother Regina had always been different from the rest of them. She'd seen Connor for who he was, not as a burden to be managed. My phone lit up with another text, this time from my father Don. Your mother mentioned something about Regina's will. Call me. I started the car, my decision crystallizing with each turn of the wheel. 8 years I'd watched them spend my money on parties and luxuries while my son struggled. 8 years of broken promises and dismissive waves. At a red light, I pulled out my phone and called Angela, my aunt who'd always stood slightly apart from the family's extravagance. I got the letter, I said when she answered. I know. Her voice was quiet. They're already planning how to spend it. Not this time. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I'm done watching them take everything while giving nothing back. Be careful, Peyton. You know how they get when money's involved. That's exactly why I'm done playing nice. I caught sight of my reflection in the rearview mirror and barely recognized the determination in my own eyes. They want to talk about inheritance. Let's talk about inheritance. But this time we're playing by my rules. As I pulled into Connor's school parking lot, I saw him waiting with his teacher, flapping his hands in that familiar way that meant he was overwhelmed. My beautiful, brilliant boy, who deserved so much more than empty promises and conditional love. Game on, I whispered, tucking the letter back into my pocket. The time for family loyalty was over. Now it was time for justice. The next morning, I arrived early at my parents' house, following the familiar sound of voices to their sun-drenched kitchen. I paused outside the door when I heard my name. Peyton's always been difficult, my mother was saying, especially since Connor. I mean, we love the boy, but she refuses to be practical about his situation. Have you seen the cost of those special schools she keeps talking about? Reagan's voice dripped with false concern. It would drain the inheritance in no time. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart hammering. They didn't know I was there yet. Regina always had a soft spot for her, my father added, but we can't let Peyton waste millions on, well, on my son. I stepped into the kitchen, making them all jump. Please finish that sentence, Dad. The silence was deafening. My mother recovered first, smoothing her silk blouse. Darling, we were just discussing. I heard exactly what you were discussing. I pulled out the inheritance letter and slapped it on the marble counter. And now we're going to discuss this. Reagan's eyes widened, darting between me and the letter. My mother snatched it up, her perfectly manicured nails crinkling the paper. 5 million, she breathed, then quickly composed herself. Well, of course, your grandmother meant this for the whole family. We'll need to discuss the most responsible way to... No. The word came out sharp enough to make her flinch. We won't, because there's nothing to discuss. The letter is addressed to me. But surely you understand, Reagan leaned forward, her voice honey-sweet, that Aunt Regina would want us to use this wisely. Those special needs programs you're looking at, they're so experimental, so uncertain. My phone buzzed, a video message from Connor's morning aide, my son beaming as he successfully completed his morning routine independently for the first time. The contrast between his pure joy and this room full of vipers made my chest ache. Uncertain? I held up my phone, playing the video. Look at him. Look at what he can do with just a little support. The support you all promised to help provide. Peyton, my father stepped forward. Be reasonable. We're family. Family? I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. Family doesn't take hundreds of thousands of dollars from their daughter while promising to help their grandson, then spend it on garden parties and country club memberships. My mother's face went white. Those loans were what, Mom? Emergency assistance? Because I have the receipts, all of them. Every time you needed money for your lifestyle, while promising you'd help Connor once the inheritance came through. You're being dramatic, Reagan cut in. We all help each other. Really? I pulled out my phone again, opening my banking app. Should we go through the transfers? The $50,000 for your business venture that never existed. The $75,000 for Mom's kitchen remodel. Dad's boat. Now, see here. My father started, but I wasn't finished. I believed you. Every time you said you'd help Connor once you had the means. Well, now the means are here, and suddenly his needs are too experimental. My mother's face hardened. If you're going to be difficult about this, perhaps we should let the lawyers handle it. Perfect idea. I gathered up the letter. I'm sure they'll be very interested in the paper trail of where my money's been going these past 8 years, not to mention the tax implications. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. We're your parents. Watch me. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Mom, cancel my contribution to your garden party. I'm sure you understand. I need to be practical about my spending. Peyton, wait, Reagan called after me. We can work something out. Maybe if you let me manage the inheritance. I stopped, hand on the doorknob. You know what's funny? I actually came here hoping you'd prove me wrong. That you'd finally put Connor first, just once. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. I'll see you all at the garden party, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. I think it's time everyone knew exactly what kind of family we really are. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed again. Another video from Connor's aide, this time of him saying, "I love you, Mom," unprompted for the first time. I sat in my car, letting the tears fall freely. They weren't tears of sadness anymore, but of determination. My son was worth fighting for, and if my family wanted war, I'd give them one they'd never forget. I started the engine, already planning my next move. The garden party was in 3 days, and I had a story to tell. You need to see this, Angela said, spreading documents across her kitchen table. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over bank statements, emails, and handwritten notes. I've been keeping track ever since Regina got sick. I picked up a paper with my mother's distinctive handwriting. What am I looking at? Evidence. Angela's normally gentle face was set with determination. Lucille's been planning this for years. Look at the date on that note. The note detailed plans for redirecting the inheritance, dated 3 years ago, right when my mother had convinced me to invest in their summer house renovation. There's more. Angela pulled out her laptop. Remember that business venture Reagan needed money for, the one that supposedly fell through? She pulled up a social media post showing Reagan on a yacht in the Mediterranean, dated the same week she'd claimed the business deal collapsed. Lost everything in the failed investment, the caption read, followed by a laughing emoji. My hands clenched into fists. They were never going to help Connor, were they? No, honey. Angela touched my arm. But Regina knew. Why do you think she left everything directly to you? A knock at the door made us both jump. Angela peered through the peephole, then quickly opened it. Get in here, quick. Reagan slipped inside, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Peyton, thank God you're here. You have to help me. I stood up, gathering the papers. I think you've got that backwards. No, listen. She grabbed my arm. Aunt Lucille's losing it. After you left, she started making calls. She's trying to get the inheritance invalidated, claiming you're an unfit mother because of Connor's condition. The room went cold. She's what? She's gathering statements from Connor's old teachers, the ones who suggested residential care. She's building a case that you're emotionally unstable and can't manage the money responsibly. Angela cursed under her breath. That sounds like Lucille. Why are you telling me this? I studied Reagan's face. Why now? Because... Reagan's eyes filled with tears. Because I saw Connor's video, the one from this morning, and I remembered when we were kids how Regina always said family meant protecting each other, not using each other. I wanted to believe her, but 8 years of betrayal made it hard. Prove it. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking. I recorded Mom and Aunt Lucille talking about their plans, about all of it, the money they took from you, the lies about helping Connor. everything. The recording played, my mother's voice crystal clear. Once we get control of the inheritance, we'll put that boy somewhere he can get proper care, and Peyton can finally stop this ridiculous crusade. My father's voice, but the money she loaned us, we'll call them gifts, my mother replied. She has no proof otherwise. Who would believe her over us? I stopped the recording, feeling sick. When was this? An hour ago. Reagan looked at her feet. I'm sorry, Peyton. I knew what they were doing was wrong, but I never thought they'd go this far. Angela was already at her desk, pulling out more files. I have copies of every transfer, every promise they made in writing. They can't fight this. They can try. I sat down heavily. And they might win. You know how influential they are in this town. Not for long. Reagan's voice had hardened. The garden party on Saturday. Everyone who matters will be there, including Judge Martinez, who handles family court cases. I looked up sharply. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, she smiled grimly, that it's time for the truth to come out. All of it. In front of everyone who's ever believed my mother's lies. Angela nodded slowly. Regina would have wanted that. She always said the truth has a way of setting things right. My phone buzzed. Connor's afternoon therapist sending his daily progress report. My beautiful boy was thriving, growing, proving everyone wrong who'd ever underestimated him. Okay, I said, standing up, but if we do this, we do it my way. No more games, no more schemes. Just the plain, ugly truth. I have something else you should see, Angela said, pulling out one final envelope. Regina left this with me before she died. She said to give it to you when you were ready to stand up to them. Inside was a letter, and as I read it, tears blurred my vision. It was everything. Every manipulation, every lie, every broken promise, documented in my grandmother's careful hand. Saturday, I said, folding the letter carefully. We'll let them have their perfect garden party. And then we'll show everyone exactly who they really are. Reagan picked up her phone. I'll make sure the right people are there. And I'll bring the receipts, Angela added. Looking at them both, my aunt who'd always stood in the shadows, my cousin finally choosing the right side. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The war was just beginning, but for the first time, I wasn't fighting alone. The day before the garden party, I walked into my parents' house unannounced, clutching a folder of documents. My mother was directing staff setting up for tomorrow's event, her voice sharp with irritation. The roses go on the left, not the... Peyton. She froze mid-gesture. What are you doing here? Family meeting, I announced, loud enough for my father to hear in his study. Now. We're rather busy. Now, Mum. Or I start making phone calls to your garden party guests about some interesting financial matters. Her face tightened, but she called out, Don, come here, please. My father emerged, looking wary. Peyton, this isn't a good time. Sit down. I pulled out 3 bank statements and laid them on the coffee table. Let's talk about Connor's therapy fund. My mother's eyes narrowed. What about it? The one you emptied last year for your spa renovation? I pushed the statement toward her. The money I specifically saved for Connor's speech therapy. We explained that, my father started. Or maybe we should discuss the college fund Grandmother Regina set up for Connor. I laid out another statement. The one you convinced me to let you invest right before your cruise to the Bahamas. My mother's face flushed red. How dare you come into my house and make accusations? They're not accusations when I have proof. I pulled out my phone, playing Reagan's recording. Their own voices filled the room, discussing their plans to declare me unfit. The color drained from my father's face. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for her wine glass. Where did you get that? She whispered. Does it matter? What matters is I have it, along with every email, every text, every transfer receipt from the past 8 years. I leaned forward. Did you really think I wouldn't keep records? We are your parents, my mother hissed. Everything we've done has been for this family's benefit. No. I stood up, my voice shaking with rage. Everything you've done has been for your benefit. While my son, your grandson, struggled without the support he needed, support you promised to provide. That boy needs more than any of us can give, my father said weakly. That boy is your grandson. And he's thriving, no thanks to you. I pulled out my phone again, showing them Connor's latest therapy video. Look at him. Really look at him. He's making incredible progress with just the bare minimum of support. Imagine what he could do with the resources you promised him. My mother turned away from the video. What do you want? I want you to stop trying to invalidate the inheritance. I want you to back off and let me use it the way Grandmother Regina intended, to help Connor. Or what? My mother's voice was dangerous. Or tomorrow, at your precious garden party, everyone learns the truth. Every detail, every betrayal, every penny you stole from your grandson's future to maintain your lifestyle. You wouldn't dare. But there was fear in her eyes now. Try me. I gathered my documents. You have until noon tomorrow to call off your lawyers and sign these papers confirming you won't contest the inheritance. If you don't, I start talking to everyone. This will destroy this family, my father pleaded. You already did that. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Mom, remember Judge Martinez, who you're counting on to help you. His grandson is autistic. I wonder how he'll feel about what you've been doing to Connor. My mother's wine glass shattered on the floor. Noon tomorrow, I repeated. And if you try anything between now and then, if you make one move against me or Connor, the recording goes public immediately. Outside, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely get my key in the car door. My phone buzzed, a text from Angela. Did you do it? It's done, I typed back. They know what's coming if they don't back down. Another text came through, this time from Reagan. Mum's calling everyone in a panic. It's working. I started my car just as my father came running out of the house. Peyton, wait, we can discuss this. I rolled down my window. Noon tomorrow, Dad, not a minute later. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of my mother in the window, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing frantically. The carefully curated image she'd maintained for so long was cracking, and she knew it. My phone rang, Connor's aide. He had an amazing day today, she said when I answered. He wrote his whole name by himself. Tears pricked my eyes. That's wonderful. I'll be there to pick him up in 10 minutes. I ended the call, feeling stronger than ever. Tomorrow would either end this war or escalate it beyond repair. Either way, I was ready. For Connor, I was ready for anything. The garden party was in full swing when I arrived at exactly noon. Crystal glasses clinked, string quartet music floated through the air, and my mother's social circle buzzed with their usual self-importance. My mother stood near the rose garden, checking her watch every few seconds. You're late, she snapped when I approached. It's exactly noon. I held up my phone displaying the time. Where are the papers? She glanced nervously at her guests. This isn't the time or place. Then I guess I should go talk to Judge Martinez. I turned toward the distinguished man by the fountain. I'm sure he'd be interested in... Wait! She grabbed my arm. Don has the papers in his study, but please, can we do this quietly? I followed her inside, where my father sat behind his desk, looking defeated. The papers lay unsigned in front of him. Sign them, I said. Peyton, please. My mother tried one last time. Think about what you're doing to this family's reputation, like you thought about Connor's future when you emptied his therapy fund. A noise from the doorway made us turn. Reagan stood there with Angela and, to my shock, Judge Martinez himself. I hope I'm not interrupting, the judge said, his eyes sharp. But Reagan here was just telling me a fascinating story about misappropriated funds meant for autism therapy. My mother's face went pale. This is a private family matter, is it? The judge stepped forward. Because as head of the family court and someone who personally understands the challenges of raising a child with autism, I'm very interested in this situation. My father's pen shook as he quickly signed the papers. My mother looked like she might faint. Now, the judge continued, shall we discuss this in private or would you prefer to address your guests? You planned this? My mother accused, glaring at me. No, Mom. You planned this years ago, when you decided your lifestyle was more important than your grandson's needs. The string quartet music drifted in through the windows, along with the murmur of guests surely wondering where their hostess had gone. Sign the papers, Mom, Reagan said quietly, or I start playing the recording out there. My mother snatched the pen and signed, tears of rage in her eyes. You've ruined everything. Actually, Judge Martinez interjected, I believe you did that yourself. And we're not quite finished. There's the matter of the funds that were, shall we say, misappropriated. I have all the documentation here, Angela stepped forward, holding up a thick folder. The next hour passed in a blur of legal terms and negotiations. By the end, my parents had agreed to repay every penny they'd taken from Connor's accounts, with interest. The judge made it clear that if they didn't comply, they'd face much worse consequences than social embarrassment. Now, I said, gathering the signed papers, you have a garden party to host. I suggest you put on your best smile and pretend everything's fine. It's what you're good at, right? My mother straightened her designer dress, tears still threatening to fall. You'll regret this. No, Mom. The only thing I regret is believing your promises for 8 years while Connor suffered. As they headed back to their guests, Reagan touched my arm. I recorded everything, just in case they tried to back out. Thank you. I turned to the judge. And thank you for coming. He smiled sadly. My grandson is the same age as Connor. The thought of someone denying him care for the sake of luxury. He shook his head. You did the right thing. Outside, the party continued as if nothing had happened, but I noticed several guests watching my parents with newfound suspicion. Whispers followed my mother as she tried to maintain her usual commanding presence. My phone buzzed with a text from Connor's weekend sitter. Connor asked when you're coming home. He made something for you. I think that's my cue to leave, I said to Angela and Reagan. Go, Angela hugged me. We'll keep an eye on things here. As I walked to my car, I heard my mother's strained voice carrying across the garden. No, everything's fine, just a small family matter. But it wasn't fine, and we all knew it. Her carefully constructed facade was cracking, and through those cracks, everyone could finally see the truth. My phone buzzed again with a photo, Connor beaming proudly next to a painting he'd made. The colors were bright and hopeful, just like his future would be now. I started the car, leaving behind the sound of clinking crystal and forced laughter. The war wasn't over. My mother would never forgive this humiliation. But I'd won the battle that mattered most. Connor would get everything he needed, and no amount of garden parties could cover up the truth anymore. A week after the garden party, I sat across from my mother's lawyer in his plush office, watching him squirm as he read through the documents Angela had compiled. Mrs. Craig, he cleared his throat, I must advise you to drop this matter immediately. Excuse me. My mother's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly. These records, he spread out the papers. Bank transfers, emails, recorded conversations. The evidence is overwhelming. If this goes to court, you'll lose everything. But the inheritance is ironclad, he cut her off, and attempting to challenge it now would only expose your previous financial activities to legal scrutiny. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. I want a different lawyer. You can try, he said, standing up, but any competent attorney will tell you the same thing. I'm withdrawing from this case. He turned to me. Ms. Craig, I apologize for any distress this has caused you and your son. After he left, my mother sat in stunned silence. For the first time in my life, I saw her looking truly defeated. It's over, Mum, I said quietly. Just let it go. Let it go? She laughed bitterly. Do you know what people are saying about us? The calls I'm getting. The club is reviewing our membership. Maybe you should have thought about that before. A knock interrupted us. Reagan poked her head in. Sorry, but you need to see this. She held up her phone, showing a social media post from one of my mother's closest friends. Heartbroken to learn how the Craig family treated their own grandson. As a grandmother myself, I cannot stand by silently. It's going viral, Reagan said. Everyone's sharing it. My mother grabbed her phone, frantically scrolling. Her face went ashen. They're talking about the truth, I finished for her. That's what happens when it finally comes out. Her phone started ringing, the country club president's name flashing on the screen. She declined the call with shaking fingers. What do you want? She whispered. Money? Public apology? What will make this stop? I want what I've always wanted, I said. I want you to acknowledge what you did to Connor. I want you to make it right. How? Start by repaying everything you took. Then, maybe consider actually being a grandmother to him. She looked up sharply. You'd still allow that? That depends on you. He's not a burden to be managed or a problem to be solved. He's your grandson, and he's amazing. My phone buzzed. Connor's new specialized teacher sending a video. I played it for them. Connor successfully completing a complex task, his face lighting up with achievement. This, I said, is what proper support looks like. This is what your garden parties and club memberships stole from him. Reagan wiped tears from her eyes. He's incredible. Yes, he is. I stood up. So what's it going to be, Mum? Are you ready to be part of his success story, or do you want to keep fighting a battle you've already lost? She stared at the phone screen, where Connor's video was still playing. For a moment, I saw something crack in her perfect mask, something that looked almost like regret. I don't know how, she admitted quietly. Start by coming to his therapy session tomorrow, I said. Just watch, learn, see who he really is, not who you assumed he was. Another call came through on her phone, this time from her closest friend at the club. She declined it again. Your social circle is crumbling, Reagan observed. Maybe it's time to build something real instead. My mother was silent for a long moment, watching Connor's video loop again. Finally, she looked up. What time tomorrow? 10 a.m., I said. Don't be late. As Reagan and I left the lawyer's office, she grabbed my arm. Do you really think she'll come? I don't know, I admitted, but for the first time, she's facing real consequences. Sometimes that's what it takes to change. My phone buzzed with a text from Angela. Don just called. He wants to know if he can come to Connor's therapy too. I showed Reagan the message. She smiled. Maybe there's hope after all. Maybe, I agreed, but this time, they have to earn it. Walking to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. The war wasn't over, but the battlefield had shifted. Now, instead of fighting against my family, maybe, just maybe, we could start fighting for Connor together. But first, they had to prove they deserved the chance. At exactly 9:55 a.m., my parents' luxury SUV pulled into the therapy center's parking lot. I watched from the window as my mother checked her reflection, then actually wiped her eyes before stepping out. They came. Connor's therapist, Sarah, whispered beside me. Are you ready for this? No, I admitted, but Connor is. My son sat at his therapy table, arranging his cards with focused determination. He'd made so much progress in just the few weeks since I'd secured the inheritance and started his intensive program. The door chimed. My parents entered, looking completely out of place in their designer clothes. Hi, buddy, my father said awkwardly. Connor continued arranging his cards, not looking up. He needs time to process new people in his space, Sarah explained gently. Why don't you sit and observe? My mother perched on the edge of her chair like she was afraid it might bite her. What is he doing? Creating a visual schedule, I explained. It helps him understand and prepare for his day. Done, Connor announced proudly, looking up. His eyes landed on my parents and he tilted his head. Grandma? Grandpa? Yes, sweetheart. My mother's voice cracked slightly. We came to see you. Connor turned to me. They came to see me? They did, I nodded. Would you like to show them what you've been working on? He considered this for a moment, then grabbed his communication tablet. With quick, practiced movements, he pulled up his latest achievement, a complex series of sentences he'd constructed himself. Look, he said, pressing play. The tablet spoke in its electronic voice. My name is Connor. I am 8 years old. I like dinosaurs and numbers. I am smart and strong. My father made a choked sound. My mother pressed her hand to her mouth. That's remarkable, she whispered. When did he learn to do that? 3 weeks ago, Sarah said. Once he had access to the right tools and support, Connor's progress has been extraordinary. Connor beamed at the praise, then turned back to his tablet. Grandma, want to see my dinosaurs? My mother's perfect makeup was definitely smeared now. Yes, sweetheart, I'd love to. For the next hour, we watched Connor work through his therapy sessions. He showed them his new skills, his coping strategies, his achievements. With each demonstration, my parents' rigid postures softened slightly. He's not just managing, my father said quietly. He's thriving. This is what I've been trying to tell you, I replied. This is what your money games almost cost him. My mother flinched. Peyton, Not now, I cut her off. This is Connor's time. After the session, Connor gave them both a high five, a huge step for him with new people, before heading off with Sarah to his next activity. In the waiting room, my mother finally broke. I was wrong, she sobbed. We were so wrong. Yes, you were, I agreed. The question is, what are you going to do about it? My father pulled out his checkbook. We've already started liquidating assets. The first repayment will be... I don't just mean the money, I interrupted. Connor needs grandparents who see him, who support him, who celebrate who he is instead of trying to change him. Tell us how, my mother said. Please, I want to learn. There's a grandparent support group here, Sarah said, joining us. They meet every Thursday. They learn about autism, share experiences, find ways to connect with their grandchildren. My parents exchanged looks. Thursday is our club lunch, my mother said slowly. Then, straightening her shoulders, I'll cancel our membership. Mom! No, she held up her hand. You were right, all of it. The club, the parties, the image, none of it matters. I want to know my grandson, the real Connor, not the Connor I imagined or feared. My father nodded. We both do. It won't be easy, I warned them. You've got a lot to make up for. We know, my mother said, but we'd like to try, really try this time. Connor's laugh echoed from the therapy room, that pure, joyful sound that always made my heart soar. My parents turned toward it, and for the first time, I saw something new in their eyes, not pity, not embarrassment, but wonder. Thursday then, I said, don't be late. As they left, I watched them walk to their car, heads close together, talking intently. My phone buzzed with a text from Reagan. How did it go? I typed back. They're joining the grandparent support group. Her response came quickly. Holy shit. Maybe miracles do happen. Maybe they did. But this wasn't just a miracle. It was the result of standing firm, demanding better, and finally making them see the truth that had been there all along. Connor wasn't the one who needed to change. They were. Happy birthday, Connor. The small group gathered in our backyard sang as my son beamed at his dinosaur-themed cake. No fancy country club party, no excessive decorations, just the people who truly mattered. My mother stepped forward with a wrapped gift. Can I give him mine first? I nodded, watching as Connor carefully unwrapped the package, a skill he'd mastered in his occupational therapy sessions. It's a communication device, he exclaimed, examining the sleek tablet. Like at therapy. So you can have one at our house too, my mother explained, her voice soft. For when you visit. Connor launched himself at her in a rare, spontaneous hug. My mother's eyes met mine over his head, filled with tears of joy instead of shame. Look what Aunt Reagan and I made, Angela called, wheeling out a giant poster board. Connor gasped as he saw what it was. A visual schedule for the next 6 months, including his therapy sessions, school activities, and planned visits with grandparents. You included our Thursday museum trips, he noted, pointing to the recurring picture. Of course, my father said. We wouldn't miss those. He'd been taking Connor to the Natural History Museum every Thursday after his support group meetings, learning to connect with his grandson through their shared love of dinosaurs. Reagan approached me with a thick envelope. Speaking of not missing things, she handed it to Connor. "Open it, buddy." Inside were printed screenshots of bank transfers. The final repayments from my parents, with significant interest. But what made me catch my breath was the additional transfer. Reagan's entire inheritance from Regina, signed over to Connor's trust fund. "I don't need it," she said quietly. "He does, and it's what Regina would have wanted." "Reagan, I can't." "Yes, you can. Consider it 8 years of aunt duties I need to make up for." A squeal of delight interrupted us. Connor had discovered the small swimming pool we'd installed for his water therapy sessions. "Can I try it now?" he asked, using his new tablet to form the question perfectly. "After cake," I promised. "Remember our schedule?" He nodded seriously, pointing to the timeline we'd created. "Cake first, then swimming, following the plan." My mother touched my arm. "Peyton, there's something else we need to tell you." She nodded to my father, who cleared his throat. "We've sold the country club membership and the summer house. We're using the money to start a foundation." "A foundation?" "For families like yours," my mother explained, "to help provide therapy and support services for children with autism. We're calling it Connor's Bridge." I stared at them, speechless. "Judge Martinez is helping us set it up," my father added. "He says there's a huge need for it in our community." "Mom, Dad, we can't undo what we did," my mother said, "but we can try to prevent other families from facing the same struggles." Connor's voice cut through the emotion. "Cake time now, following the schedule." Everyone laughed, gathering around the table as Connor carefully cut his cake using the adaptive tools Sarah had provided. I watched my son, confident, supported, thriving, surrounded by people who finally saw him for the amazing person he was. "You know," Angela said beside me, "Regina would be proud, not just of Connor, but of you. You fought for him when it would have been easier to give in." "We all did in the end," I replied, watching Reagan help Connor serve the first slice to my mother, who was actually wearing jeans for the first time in probably decades. "More than that," Angela smiled. "You helped them become better people. Look at them now." She was right. My mother, who once cringed at Connor's stimming, was now patiently waiting as he explained each dinosaur decoration on the cake. My father, who'd wanted to hide Connor away, was proudly filming every moment on his phone. "Ready for swimming after cake," Connor announced, using his tablet to emphasize his excitement. Following the schedule, everyone responded in unison, our new family motto. As I watched Connor enjoy his birthday, surrounded by genuine love and support, I realized something profound. Our story wasn't just about revenge or justice. It was about transformation. My parents hadn't just repaid money. They'd rebuilt themselves into the grandparents Connor deserved. "Mom," Connor called, holding out a piece of cake. "Sit with me?" I joined my son, accepting the perfectly cut slice. Around us, our small but mighty family continued celebrating, all pretense and performance stripped away, replaced by something real and precious. We'd lost the facade of a perfect family, but we'd gained something better, a true one, built on understanding, acceptance, and love. Just like Connor's schedule, we were following a new plan now, one that finally put him first.
The day I served my husband divorce papers, my mother called me a disgrace to the family name. She spat the words through the phone like venom, each syllable burning holes in what remained of my heart. That was the moment I realized blood ties can strangle you just as effectively as any rope. My name is Serenity, and this isn't a story about forgiveness. This is a story about justice served cold with a side of carefully calculated karma. "You're making a terrible mistake," Mom hissed. "Maximus has been nothing but generous to this family. He gave you everything." I stood in our marble-floored kitchen, his kitchen, really, staring at my reflection in the window. A woman I barely recognized stared back, her left cheek still slightly swollen from last week's discussion about household expenses. He gave me bruises, Mom. He gave me anxiety attacks and empty bank accounts. Don't you dare! He explained about your episodes, your paranoia. We all know you've been unstable lately. I laughed then, a hollow sound that echoed off the expensive walls. Did he explain why I found lipstick on his collar, or why our joint account is suddenly empty? You ungrateful little... She stopped herself, but I could hear her breathing heavily. Your father wants to speak with you. Dad's voice came through next, calm and maddeningly reasonable. Serenity, honey, you're choosing the hard way here. Think about what you're throwing away. Think about the family. I am thinking about family, I whispered. Why aren't you? The doorbell rang. My hands shook as I opened it, finding Ellie on the doorstep. My older sister's face was set in stone, her designer handbag clutched like a shield. You need to stop this nonsense right now, she announced, pushing past me into the foyer. Do you have any idea what you're doing to Mom? To all of us? Hello to you too, sis. I closed the door softly. Did Maximus call you? He didn't have to. Sarah saw you at the courthouse. Ellie's heel tapped an angry rhythm on the imported tile. Filing divorce papers? Are you insane? Probably, I smiled thinly. But not for the reasons you think. He told us everything. She stepped closer, jabbing a manicured finger at my chest. About the money you've been hiding, the men you've been seeing, your little mental breakdowns. My phone buzzed. A text from Bailey. Mom's crying. Fix this. Of course he did, I said quietly. And you all believed him. Just like that. Because it makes sense. Ellie threw her hands up. You've always been jealous of successful people, always playing the victim. God, I can't believe you're doing this to us. The front door opened again. Maximus strode in, his presence filling the space like a storm cloud. He looked exactly like what he was, handsome, wealthy, respected, the perfect mask. Ah, Ellie, thank you for coming. His voice dripped concern. Serenity's been unstable today. I watched him kiss my sister's cheek, watched her melt into his active, worried husband. 10 years of marriage crystallized into this single moment of clarity. The papers are on the counter, I said. Your lawyer can contact mine. Sweetheart. He stepped toward me, all gentle authority. Let's discuss this privately. You're not thinking clearly. Don't. I backed away. Don't touch me. See? Ellie gestured frantically. This is exactly what he was talking about, the paranoia, the accusations. My phone buzzed again. Sarah, this time. You're dead to me. I looked between them, my sister, my husband, and saw the future with perfect clarity. They'd already chosen sides. The narrative was written, and I wasn't the hero of their story. I'll get my things, I said. Don't bother. Maximus's mask slipped just for a second. You'll be hearing from my lawyer about the theft accusations. I walked out with my purse, my car keys, and the clothes on my back. Behind me, I heard Ellie consoling him, heard the performance of his pain and confusion. I drove until the gaslight came on, pulled into a motel parking lot, and finally let myself cry. They thought I would disappear into shame and silence. They expected me to crawl back, apologizing for my delusions. What they didn't know, what none of them suspected, was that I'd been watching, recording, gathering, every transaction, every lie, every carefully hidden skeleton in Maximus's golden closet. I wiped my eyes, opened my laptop, and created a new folder. I named it The House Maximus Built and began to type. They wanted me gone? Fine. But I'd be damned if I went quietly. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a scream. It's a whisper, years in the making, that brings down empires. 10 years can change everything or nothing at all. I run my fingers across the sleek surface of my desk, admiring how the morning sun catches the awards displayed on my wall. Serenity Designs, Excellence in Interior Design reads the newest one. My clients love how I transform spaces from cold to welcoming, from chaos to calm. They don't know I learned those skills by rebuilding myself from scratch. My phone buzzes. It's Celeste. "Dad's getting sloppy," she says without preamble. "He thinks I don't notice, but he's been moving money around like crazy." "Are you being careful?" I ask, pulling up my secure email. "Please, I learned from the best." She pauses. "He has no idea I still talk to you. None of them do." I smile, remembering the day Maximus's teenage daughter showed up at my office 3 years ago. She'd tracked me down through my business website, armed with her father's password-protected documents and a lifetime of her own grievances. "I've got copies of everything," Celeste continues. "Sending them now, the encrypted way, like you showed me." My laptop pings. Another piece of the puzzle clicks into place. The door chimes and Rocky walks in, carrying coffee. My boyfriend of 2 years knows exactly what I need on these morning deep dives into Maximus's world. "Still at it?" he asks, setting my cup down. "Almost done." I gesture to my screen. 10 years of financial records don't organize themselves. "You know," he says carefully, "you could just turn this over to the feds now. You have enough." I shake my head. "Not yet. It needs to be perfect." My phone rings again. This time it's my therapist, Dr. Marshall. "Just checking in," she says when I answer. "Today's a big anniversary." 10 years since the divorce, I confirm. "I'm okay." "Are you still planning to—" "Yes." I cut her off gently. "But not for revenge anymore, for justice." There's a difference? I think about the years of rebuilding, the nights I spent sleeping in my car until I could afford an apartment, the clients I slowly accumulated while working 3 jobs, the careful documentation of every rumor, every whistleblower account, every financial discrepancy in Maximus's empire. Revenge burns fast, I tell her. Justice burns clean. After we hang up, I open my special folder. The house Maximus built has grown from a few desperate notes into a comprehensive dossier. Bank statements, offshore accounts, witness testimonies, photos of his mistresses and his victims. Rocky reads over my shoulder. "Holy shit, is that really—" "Yep." I point to a particular transaction. "He's been running a Ponzi scheme through his investment firm, among other things." "And Celeste got you this?" "Some of it." I start organizing the new files. The rest came from disgruntled employees, public records, and good old-fashioned patience. My email pings again. This time it's from an anonymous account I know well, another former employee of Maximus's firm, feeding me information. "You should see this," the message reads. Attached is a video file. I play it. Maximus appears, holding court in what looks like a board meeting. He's older now, grayer, but still radiating that same toxic charm. "We'll restructure the Jensen account," he's saying. "Move everything offshore before the audit, the usual cleanup." I save the video, add it to my evidence file. Then I open my contact list and scroll to VR. Vincenzo Ross, FBI Financial Crimes Division. "Not yet," Rocky warns, reading my mind. "No," I agree, "but soon." I close my laptop and walk to the window. My office overlooks the same courthouse where I filed for divorce a decade ago. Sometimes I see women walking those steps, clutching papers and hope, just like I did. My phone buzzes with a text from Celeste. "Dad's hosting a family dinner tonight. Your family will be there too, all of them." I can picture it perfectly. My parents, still proud to be associated with their successful son-in-law. Ellie and Sarah basking in his generosity. Bailey accepting whatever narrative keeps the peace. "Let them eat cake," I text back. I return to my desk and open a fresh manila envelope. The label VR stares back at me, waiting. 10 years of evidence, of patience, of calculated documentation, all leading to this moment. "You're sure?" Rocky asks one more time. I think about my mother's last words to me, about Ellie's accusations, about every family dinner I wasn't invited to, every holiday I spent alone, every night I cried myself to sleep while they celebrated with my abuser. I'm sure, I say, and begin to fill the envelope. It's time they learned what justice tastes like. Breaking news flashes across my TV screen. Prominent investment firm CEO arrested in massive fraud investigation. The camera zooms in on Maximus being led out of his office in handcuffs, his perfect suit wrinkled, his famous smile nowhere to be seen. Sources say the investigation was triggered by an anonymous whistleblower, the reporter continues. Documents provided to federal authorities revealed a decade-long pattern of financial fraud. My phone starts buzzing. First, a text from Mom. "Are you watching the news? Please call me." I sip my coffee, watching it go to voicemail. Rocky sits beside me on the couch. Here we go. The calls keep coming. Bailey, Sarah, Ellie, each one straight to voicemail. I've waited 10 years for this moment. I can wait a few more minutes to hear their desperate explanations. Serenity, it's Mom again. We need to talk. As a family. Please call back. Delete. Sis, it's Bailey. Look, I know things have been rough, but we're all meeting at Mom and Dad's tonight. You should come. Delete. My doorbell rings. I check the security camera. It's Sarah, mascara running down her face. Don't answer it, Rocky warns. I won't. I turn up the TV volume instead. Investigators estimate losses could exceed $50 million. Multiple high-profile clients have already come forward. Sarah's voice carries through the door. Serenity, I know you're in there. Please, we need to talk. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Ellie, her text dripping with familiar condescension. This is your chance to stop being bitter. Help us. I laugh out loud. Help them? Now they want my help? Rocky squeezes my hand. You okay? Never better. I forward Ellie's text to my evidence folder. Watch this. I dial my voicemail and put it on speaker. Serenity, honey, it's Dad. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but your mother's beside herself. Whatever happened in the past, we're still family. Call us. Sarah's still pounding on my door. Please, my savings, everything's frozen. We need to figure this out. I walk to the door but don't open it. Figure what out, Sarah? Oh, thank God. She sniffles loudly. Please let me in. I need to explain. Explain what? How you called me a liar, a gold digger? How you told me I was dead to you? That was 10 years ago. People change. Yes, I say quietly. They do. My phone rings again. This time it's Celeste. They're panicking, she says when I answer. Dad's lawyers are saying everyone's assets might be seized. Mom's having a meltdown. Are you safe? I'm at college. Dad never put my tuition in his accounts, thank God. She pauses. They're all at your parents' house trying to figure out what to do. Sarah's still pleading through the door. Just talk to me. We can fix this. I check my watch. Investigator Ross should be serving more warrants right about now. Time to move to the next phase. Sarah, I call through the door. I'll think about it. Come back tomorrow. Promise? Promise. Her footsteps finally retreat. I turn to Rocky. Ready for phase 2? He grins. Born ready. I pick up my phone and dial Investigator Ross. Right on schedule, he answers. You should see their faces when we freeze the accounts. Any problems? None. Your documentation was perfect. 10 years of evidence. You didn't miss a thing. I hang up and check my messages again. 7 missed calls, 12 texts, 2 emails. Serenity, Mom's latest voicemail pleads. Whatever issues we've had, family helps family. That's what we do. I delete it and turn to Rocky. Family helps family? Where was that attitude 10 years ago? Want to show them the recordings from back then? Not yet. I smile, remembering every cruel word they'd thrown at me. Let them sweat first. My phone buzzes one more time. A text from Ellie. Mom's having chest pains. Hope you're happy with yourself. I forward that one to my evidence folder too. Every manipulation, every guilt trip, every desperate attempt to pull me back into their drama, it's all going in the file. You know they'll figure it out eventually, Rocky says, that you were the whistleblower. I'm counting on it. I turn off my phone and walk to my office. The manila envelope labeled VR sits empty on my desk, its contents now spreading through federal investigations like wildfire. Let them piece it together, I tell Rocky. Let them realize that while they were playing happy family with my abuser, I was documenting every lie, every scheme, every crime. The news keeps playing in the background. More arrests expected as investigation widens. I smile. The house Maximus built is falling down, and I made sure my family was inside when it collapsed. Morning sunlight streams through my kitchen window as I pour my coffee and open my laptop. Time to review yesterday's messages. I hit play on the first voicemail, recording it with screen capture software. Evidence is everything. Serenity? Mom's voice trembles. The FBI was just here. They're saying terrible things about Maximus, about the money. Please call me back. Next message. Hey sis, it's Bailey. Remember that loan I gave Maximus last year? My account's frozen. I know we haven't talked, but... Delete. My doorbell rings. Sarah again, but this time she's not alone. Ellie stands beside her, both of them looking like they haven't slept. 2 minutes, I say through the door. That's all we need. Ellie's voice has lost its usual edge. I let them in, noting how they flinch at my direct gaze. They sit on my couch like strangers, clutching their designer bags. Nice place, Sarah manages. Thanks. I decorated it myself, after I lost everything. Ellie winces. Serenity, please, we're not here to fight. No? I sit across from them. Why are you here? We need your help, Sarah blurts out. You're the only one who really knew how Maximus handled money. The FBI is asking questions. And you thought I'd help you answer them? I laugh softly. Interesting. Don't be like this, Ellie snaps, then catches herself. Sorry, we're scared. Scared? I pull out my phone, scroll through old photos. Like I was scared when Maximus threw me down the stairs, when he emptied our accounts, when he turned my whole family against me. We didn't know, Sarah starts. You didn't want to know. I show them the photo, my bruised face from 10 years ago. I tried to tell you, all of you. Remember what you said, Ellie? She looks away. I was wrong. Say it. What did you say? I said you were making it up for attention. Tears spill down her cheeks. That you were jealous of his success. My phone buzzes. A text from Celeste. Dad's lawyers are pleading for a deal. He's naming names. The FBI agent, Sarah says suddenly. He mentioned a whistleblower. Someone who'd been collecting evidence for years. I meet her gaze steadily. Did he? Understanding dawns in her eyes. Oh God, it was you? Does it matter? I stand up. You should go. Wait! Ellie grabs my arm. Please. Mom's in the hospital. Anxiety attack. Dad's about to lose his retirement. You need? I carefully remove her hand. Like I needed my family 10 years ago? Sarah starts sobbing. We're sorry. Is that what you want to hear? We're sorry. Sorry doesn't pay back 10 years of holidays alone. Sorry doesn't erase the nights I slept in my car. Sorry doesn't fix what you broke. My phone rings. Investigator Ross. I answer on speaker. Ms. Ward, we're ready for your statement whenever you're available. Ellie's face goes pale. Sarah stops crying. I'll be there this afternoon, I tell him. After I hang up, silence fills the room. My sisters stare at me like they're seeing a stranger. You're going to testify against him? Ellie whispers. No, I smile. I already did, months ago. Today's just the formal statement. Sarah stands shakily. All this time? You were building a case? I was delivering justice, the kind you all denied me. Mom will never forgive you, Ellie says, but her voice lacks conviction. Mom never forgave me for telling the truth the first time. At least this time I have proof. They leave quietly, defeated. Through my window, I watch them climb into Ellie's Mercedes, probably one of the last times they'll enjoy such luxury. My phone buzzes again, a text from Rocky. How'd it go? Exactly as expected, I reply. They wanted help hiding their involvement. And? I think about Sarah's tears, Ellie's desperation. For a moment, I feel a flicker of the sister I used to be, the one who would have done anything to help family. But that sister died the night they chose Maximus over me. And nothing, I text back. Some things can't be fixed with sorry. I open my laptop and pull up the file I've been building, not just Maximus's crimes, but every text, every voicemail, every cruel word my family threw at me, every bit of evidence showing how they enabled him, defended him, chose him. Tomorrow, I'll give my statement. I'll look Maximus in the eye and tell the truth, all of it. And my family will finally understand that karma doesn't care about blood ties. They taught me that lesson, after all. I'm just returning the favor. The federal building's lobby feels colder than I remember. Investigator Ross meets me at security, his face professionally neutral, but his eyes kind. Ready? He asks, leading me to a conference room. I've been ready for 10 years. Inside, his team has spread my evidence across the table, printouts, photos, transcripts. A decade of patience laid bare under fluorescent lights. Your documentation is incredible, Ross says, closing the door. Most whistleblowers bring us fragments. You brought us a complete narrative. I had time. I pick up a photo of Maximus at a charity gala, my family clustered around him like moths to flame. And motivation. About that. Ross sits across from me. We can offer you witness protection, new identity, new location. No. I set the photo down. I won't hide. Not anymore. He has powerful friends. Had, I correct him. Past tense. A knock at the door. Another agent enters with fresh coffee and more files. The daughter's here. Celeste walks in, tall and composed in her college sweater. She hugs me tight before sitting down. Dad's lawyers called again, she tells Ross. They're pushing for a deal. Let them push. Ross opens a folder. We have enough to put him away for decades. My phone buzzes. A text from Rocky. Your mum's outside the building. Ignore her, Celeste says, reading over my shoulder. She tried calling me too. Wanted me to talk sense into you. Ross clears his throat. Let's focus on your statement. Start from the beginning. I tell them everything. The abuse, the gaslighting, the financial manipulation. How Maximus built his empire on lies and fraud, using my family's reputation to lure in victims. And this account? Ross points to a spreadsheet. The one he used to hide money from his investors? That was his insurance policy, Celeste explains. He bragged about it at dinner once, thought I wasn't paying attention. Another knock. An agent whispers something to Ross, who nods. Your mother's demanding to see you, he tells me. Security's holding her in the lobby. Let her wait. I continue my statement, describing how Maximus laundered money through fake charities my parents proudly supported. Hours pass. My throat goes dry from talking. Finally, Ross sits back. This is more than enough, he says. The prosecution will be in touch about testimony schedules. In the lobby, Mom's still waiting. She looks smaller somehow, her designer outfit wrinkled from sitting too long. Serenity! She rushes forward. Please, you have to stop this. Hello, Mother. My voice stays steady. How's your anxiety? How can you be so cold? Your father's firm is being investigated because of this. Our reputation... Your reputation? I step closer. You mean the reputation you protected by calling me a liar? By choosing him over your own daughter? I didn't know. She grabs my arm. None of us knew what he was really doing. But you knew what he did to me. I gently remove her hand. And you chose not to believe it. Celeste appears beside me. Mom startles. She hadn't known about our connection. You too? Mom whispers. Me too. Celeste's voice is ice. I watched him destroy Serenity. Then I watched him try to destroy others. Not anymore. The family will never recover from this, Mom says. Good. I check my watch. The family needs to learn actions have consequences. Your father made his choice. I turn to leave, just like you did. Outside, the courthouse steps are crowded with reporters. They don't recognize me yet. That'll change soon enough. Celeste squeezes my hand before heading to her car. See you at the trial, she says. My phone buzzes. A text from Ellie. Mom's crying again. I hope you're satisfied. I am satisfied, but not in the way they think. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about truth finally breaking through 10 years of lies. Rocky's waiting in his car around the corner. How'd it go? It's done. I buckle my seatbelt. The prosecutor says it's airtight. And your mom? Still trying to protect the family name. I laugh softly. She doesn't understand. I am protecting the family. From him, from themselves, from their own lies. What now? I think about the upcoming trial, about facing Maximus in court, about watching my family finally confront the truth they worked so hard to deny. Now? I smile. Now we watch justice do its work. My phone buzzes one last time. A message from Investigator Ross. Maximus took the deal. Full confession. You did it. I close my eyes, feeling 10 years of weight lift from my shoulders. They thought they'd silenced me. Instead, they taught me how to whisper truths that shatter empires. The courtroom feels smaller than I expected. Maximus sits at the defendant's table, expensive suit replaced by prison orange. He still tries to project confidence, but his shoulders slump when he sees me. My family fills the first 2 rows behind him. Mom dabbing her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Dad staring straight ahead. Ellie and Sarah whispering to each other. Bailey studying his shoes. Rocky squeezes my hand. You've got this. The judge enters and we all rise. Maximus's lawyer drones through technical details about the plea agreement. Finally, the moment arrives. The court will now hear victim impact statements, the judge announces. I stand, smoothing my skirt. Maximus turns slightly, attempting his old charming smile. It falters when I meet his gaze. 10 years ago, I begin. I stood in this same courthouse filing for divorce. I had bruises hidden under my clothes and empty bank accounts in my name. Mom makes a small wounded sound. The man sitting there convinced everyone I was crazy, unstable, a gold digger. I keep my voice steady. He was very convincing. He had to be. His entire life was built on convincing people to trust him with their money, their futures, their truth. Maximus shifts uncomfortably, but here's what he didn't know about me. I pull out a small recorder, the same one I used to document his threats years ago. I learned from him. I learned how to gather evidence, how to build trust, how to wait for the perfect moment. His lawyer whispers something urgent. Maximus waves him off. Every charity event where he laundered money, I was watching. Every investor he defrauded, I documented. Every lie he told. I look at my family. I recorded. Sarah covers her mouth. Ellie's face goes pale. Some people don't see karma coming until it's in handcuffs, I continue. But I saw it building for 10 years. I watched him destroy lives, just like he tried to destroy mine. The only difference is, this time I had proof. Objection, Maximus's lawyer stands. This isn't relevant to... Overruled, the judge cuts in. Continue, Ms. Ward. The man sitting there isn't just a financial criminal. He's a master manipulator who turned families against each other, who convinced people to doubt their own eyes, their own hearts. I turned to face him directly. Who made my own mother call me a liar when I begged for help. Mom starts crying openly now. Dad puts his arm around her, but his face has lost its color. Your Honor, I say, the monetary damages are documented in evidence, but the real crime was teaching people to doubt their own truth, to choose money over love, power over family. Maximus finally speaks. Serenity, please. No. My voice cracks like a whip. You don't get to speak to me, not anymore. The judge gavels for order. I take a deep breath. I don't want revenge, I say finally. I want accountability. I want everyone in this room to understand that truth doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It waits, it builds, it returns with interest. I sit down. Rocky wraps his arm around me as Celeste approaches the podium for her statement. My father, she begins, her voice clear and cold, taught me one valuable lesson: document everything. Maximus's face crumples as his daughter details his crimes. Behind him, my family seems to shrink with each revelation. When it's over, the judge delivers the sentence: 20 years, no possibility of early release, full restitution to victims. As bailiffs lead him away, Maximus tries one last time. I did it for all of us, for the family. No, I say, loud enough for everyone to hear. You did it for yourself, and now we're all paying your bill. Outside the courtroom, Mom approaches me hesitantly. You gave them that evidence file. You turned him in. Yes. All this time, you were... She trails off, lost. Building a case? I finish for her. Getting justice? Or maybe just proving I wasn't crazy after all. I'm so sorry, she whispers. Sorry doesn't fix it, Mom. I step back as my siblings approach. Sorry doesn't erase 10 years. Then what will? Sarah asks. Nothing. I take Rocky's hand. Some things break too completely to repair. We're still family, Dad says quietly. I look at them, really look at them. My mother's expensive clothes, now wrinkled from stress. My father's proud posture, finally cracked. My siblings' confused faces, still struggling to understand how their perfect world collapsed. No, I say gently. We're just people who share DNA. You taught me the difference. I walk away, leaving them with their shattered illusions. Behind me, I hear Ellie start to cry, hear Mom calling my name, but I don't look back. Some lessons cost everything to learn. This one cost them their golden son-in-law, their reputation, and their daughter. I'd say we're finally even. 1 week after the sentencing, I invite them all to my home. They arrive punctually, awkwardly clutching wine bottles and forced smiles. My living room, designed by me, built from the ground up after I lost everything, feels too small for all their guilt. Lovely place, Mum says, trying too hard. The colors are so... peaceful? I pour wine for everyone. That's what my clients say. I specialize in transforming toxic spaces. Bailey chokes slightly on his drink. Ellie studies her glass like it holds answers. Why did you invite us? Sarah finally asks. Closure. I sit down, Rocky steady beside me. And truth. We know the truth now, Dad says quietly. We saw it in court. No. I pull out my laptop. You saw the legal truth. Now you get to hear your truth. I press play. Mom's voice fills the room. You ungrateful little liar. After everything Maximus did for this family. Ellie's voice follows. She's always been jealous of successful people, always playing the victim. One by one, their past cruelties play out. Every recorded phone call, every text message, every public humiliation they inflicted. Sarah starts crying. Turn it off. No. I let their words continue. You all need to hear this. Bailey stands up. We get it, okay? We were wrong. Sit down. My voice doesn't rise, but he sits. You don't get to run from this. The recordings keep playing. Dad's passive dismissals, Mom's angry accusations, my siblings' unified rejection. Finally, silence falls. That's not even half of it, I say, closing my laptop. But it's enough. "Why are you doing this?" Mom whispers. "Because sorry isn't enough." I lean forward. "Because you all need to understand exactly what you did." "We believed him," Ellie says. "We were wrong, but we..." "No." I cut her off. "You chose him. There's a difference." I stand up and walk to my office, returning with a thick file. "This is what I gave the FBI," I tell them. 10 years of evidence, but look at the dates. Dad takes the file, flips through it. His hands start shaking. "The fraud started before your divorce," he realizes. "Yes." I watch their faces. "Which means when I told you about the missing money, the secret accounts, I was telling the truth then too." Sarah makes a small, broken sound. "But you didn't even consider that, did you?" I continue. "It was easier to believe I was crazy, jealous, bitter." "We didn't know," Mom starts. "You didn't want to know." I take the file back. "Your country club reputation was more important than your daughter's bruises." "Please," Bailey tries. "We want to make this right." "Make it right?" I laugh softly. "Can you give me back 10 years of holidays alone? Can you erase the nights I cried myself to sleep? Can you undo telling everyone in town I was a mentally unstable gold digger?" Silence answers me. "I didn't invite you here for reconciliation," I tell them. "I invited you here so you'd understand exactly what you're apologizing for." "What do you want from us?" Dad asks. "Nothing." I stand up. "I want you to live with what you did. I want you to feel the weight of it every time you see me succeed without you. Every time you realize I built this life despite you, not because of you." "We're still family," Mom pleads. "No." I walk to the door. Family believes each other. Family protects each other. Family doesn't choose an abuser over their own blood. One by one, they file out. Sarah tries to hug me. I step back. Ellie can't meet my eyes. Bailey mumbles another apology. Dad hesitates at the door. "For what it's worth," he says, "I'm proud of how strong you've become." "I became strong because you made me," I reply. "Now leave." Mom is last. "Will we ever see you again?" "Maybe." I look at her directly. "But not as your daughter. That person died the night you chose him." After they're gone, Rocky holds me while I finally let myself cry. Not for them, for the girl I used to be, who believed family meant unconditional love. My phone buzzes. A text from Celeste. "Did you do it?" "Yes," I reply. "It's done." "Feel better?" I think about their faces as they heard their own cruel words, about the weight lifting from my shoulders as I finally spoke my complete truth. "I feel free," I text back. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making people suffer. It's making them face exactly who they are. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't forgive, but accept that some relationships deserve to end. I curl into Rocky's arms, listening to the quiet of my peaceful home. Tomorrow, I'll transform another client's space from chaos to calm. But tonight, I finally transformed my past from an open wound into a closed chapter. The morning sun warms my garden as I tend to my roses. Each bloom represents a small victory, life springing from soil I thought was dead. Rocky brings out coffee, settling into the chair beside me. "Mail came," he says, handing me an envelope. Inside is a small painting from Celeste, an abstract piece in deep blues and golds. The card reads, "Thank you for teaching me strength has many forms. Love, C." My phone buzzes. A news alert. "Investment firm scandal. Additional arrests made." I smile, knowing more of Maximus's corrupt associates are facing justice. "You never told me," Rocky says, reading over my shoulder. "Was it worth it? All those years of waiting?" Before I can answer, my doorbell rings. Through the security camera, I see Sarah standing alone, no designer bag this time, just simple clothes and tired eyes. 2 minutes, I tell her through the intercom. She doesn't try to hug me this time. "I've been in therapy," she says without preamble, really trying to understand why I did what I did. And? I was scared. She twists her hands. Scared of losing status. Scared of admitting our family wasn't perfect. Scared of the truth? Yeah. She looks around my garden. Your roses are beautiful. They grow better without poison in the soil. She winces at the metaphor. Mom asks about you. Every Sunday dinner she sets a place. Old habits die hard. No, I mean, Sarah sighs. She sets it and tells stories about how you were right, about everything, every time. I deadhead a spent bloom. Guilt's funny that way. Ellie left Tom, she continues, said she finally recognized the signs you tried to warn her about. That makes me look up. Ellie's husband had always reminded me of Maximus. Bailey's in therapy too, Sarah adds. Dad, he's different, quieter. He keeps your newspaper clippings, the ones about your design business. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know you changed us, broke us maybe, but we needed breaking. My phone buzzes again. A text from Investigator Ross. Last conspirator just took a plea deal. It's really over. Sarah sees the message. You did it. You really brought down his whole empire. No. I stand up, brushing dirt from my knees. He brought himself down. I just showed everyone the truth they refused to see. I should go. She turns, then stops. For what it's worth, I'm proud to be your sister, even if I don't deserve to be. After she leaves, Rocky brings me fresh coffee. You okay? Better than okay. I touch a rose petal. I thought revenge would taste sweeter. But this is better. Watching them face themselves, watching them change. My phone rings. Celeste. Dad tried to send me a letter from prison. I sent it back unopened. Good for you. I learned from the best. She pauses. Hey, want to get lunch? I'm presenting my art portfolio nearby. I'd love that. After we hang up, Rocky helps me with the roses. You never answered my question, he reminds me. Was it worth it? I look around my garden, my home, my life built from ashes. Think about Sarah's visit, about Celeste's strength, about my family finally facing their truths. Revenge wasn't the point, I tell him. Justice was. Truth was. And now? Now I have peace. I smile. Real peace. Not the fake kind that comes from swallowing lies. My security camera pings. Mom's at the front gate, but she doesn't ring the bell. She just looks at my garden, touches the gate once, then leaves. She's learning. They all are. Sometimes, I tell Rocky, the best revenge is living well enough to show them exactly what they threw away. He kisses my forehead. And sometimes the strongest chains are the ones we choose to break. I pick up Celeste's painting, admiring how the colors blend and separate, like truth emerging from lies. My phone shows missed calls from Ellie, Bailey, Dad, all learning to live with consequences, all understanding that some bridges burn for a reason. The morning sun warms my roses, my truth, my peace. I didn't get a happy ending with my family. I got something better. I got freedom. Freedom from lies, from manipulation, from the obligation to forgive the unforgivable. They taught me that blood isn't always thicker than water. Sometimes it's just the color of wounds that needed to bleed to heal. I pick a perfect rose, place it in a vase beside Celeste's painting. Some things break to become more beautiful. Some families shatter to set their members free. And sometimes the quietest revenge is simply growing flowers in the dirt where they buried you.
The crystal champagne flute trembled ever so slightly in my hand as I watched my mother take the stage. Even from across the grand ballroom, I could see the practiced smile that had won her the devotion of Manhattan's elite. The same smile she'd worn when telling me, at age 12, that Daddy wasn't coming home. My name is Tegan, and tonight was supposed to be my mother Rebecca's 60th birthday celebration. Instead, it became the night she tried to destroy me. Darling, you look absolutely stunning, my stepfather Scott whispered, materializing beside me. His hand brushed my shoulder, and I fought the urge to recoil. That Valentino suits you perfectly. Thank you, Scott. I kept my voice neutral, my eyes fixed on the podium where Mother was adjusting the microphone. The historic Hamilton Estates ballroom sparkled around us, every crystal chandelier reflecting the foundation's success I'd helped build over the last decade. Ladies and gentlemen, my mother began, I'm overwhelmed by your presence here tonight. The Ellis Foundation has grown beyond my wildest dreams, thanks to your generous support. My stepsister Pearl caught my eye from across the room, smirking as she raised her glass. Her brother Van stood nearby, phone in hand, no doubt live streaming the moment to his thousands of followers. But tonight isn't just about celebrating another year, Mother continued. It's about securing our legacy, the crowd murmured appreciatively. I took another sip of champagne, grateful for its steadying warmth. Tegan, darling, would you join me up here? My heart skipped, but my heels clicked steadily across the marble floor. Years of board meetings and galas had taught me how to wear composure like armor. My daughter, Mother said, her voice carrying across the hushed room, who has worked alongside me since the beginning. I stepped onto the small stage, feeling hundreds of eyes upon us. Mother's perfume, Chanel No. 5, always, wrapped around me like a familiar noose. Which makes this next announcement particularly difficult. She turned to face me directly. The board has decided, and I fully support their decision, that the Foundation's future lies in new hands. The room went silent. Even the waiters stopped moving. Effective immediately, leadership of the Ellis Foundation will transfer to Scott Duncan and his children, who have demonstrated the vision and dedication needed to carry us forward. Pearl's triumphant laugh cut through the silence like a knife. Van was still filming, his grin wide enough to swallow me whole. Tegan's position as director will be terminated, and her inheritance rights within the Foundation dissolved. Mother's voice didn't waver. Sometimes we must make difficult choices for the greater good. I felt Scott's hand on my back, steering me toward the stairs. Perhaps you'd like a moment to collect yourself, he murmured, loud enough for the front row to hear. I turned to face the crowd instead. Actually, I would like to say something. Mother's smile flickered. Darling, please don't make this harder. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming, I said smoothly, and to congratulate Scott, Van, and Pearl on their new positions. I raised my glass. To family. The confusion on their faces was delicious. They'd expected tears, perhaps a scene. Instead, I descended the stairs with perfect poise, accepting sympathetic touches and whispered condolences as I made my way to the bar. Gideon! I nodded to my lawyer, who'd been waiting in the wings. I believe it's time. He pulled out his phone, sent a quick text. Across the room, Peyton, our trustee liaison, began distributing sealed envelopes to board members. What's happening? I heard Pearl hiss to Van. Why isn't she leaving? Mother was already reading her copy, her face draining of color. Scott snatched it from her hands, his own complexion turning an interesting shade of gray. Is there a problem? I asked innocently, loud enough to carry. You all look like you've seen a ghost. The document they held, the one I'd helped draft 3 years ago when Mother still trusted me, named me irrevocable lifetime trustee of the Foundation. No board vote could change that. No announcement could strip my authority. They'd brought a knife to a gunfight, and I had nuclear weapons. This is impossible, Scott spluttered. Rebecca, you signed this. Mother's hands were shaking now. I don't remember. Oh, but you do, I said softly. It was right after the Thompson scandal. You were so worried about protecting the Foundation's future. I smiled. And now it is protected, just not the way you planned. The photographers Mother had invited to capture her triumph were still clicking away, immortalizing every second of her humiliation. And I just smiled. 3 years earlier, I sat across from Mother in her private study, watching her sign the document that would eventually save me. The memory is crystal clear. Her reading glasses perched on her nose, the scratch of her Mont Blanc pen, the afternoon sun streaming through leaded glass windows. "I just don't understand why it needs to be irrevocable," she'd said, hesitating over the final page. "Because of Thompson," I reminded her gently. "We can't risk another board member trying to seize control. This protects everything Dad built." The mention of my father always softened her. "You're right, of course. You always think ahead, just like he did." Now, standing in the chaos of her 60th birthday gala, I watched that same pen slip from her trembling fingers and clatter across the marble floor. "Mrs. Duncan," Gideon stepped forward, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "Would you like me to explain the legal implications of the trustee document you signed in 2020? Scott's hand clamped down on Mother's arm. "We don't need—" "Actually," I cut in, "I think everyone here deserves to understand exactly what's happening." I turned to address the crowd of society's finest. 3 years ago, my mother and I established an irrevocable trust agreement. I was named lifetime trustee of the Ellis Foundation with full operational control. Pearl's perfectly contoured face twisted. "That's ridiculous! Daddy, do something!" "The document has been verified by 3 separate law firms," Gideon continued, passing out additional copies to the board members. "It's ironclad." "You manipulated her into signing this," Scott snarled, advancing toward me. "Rebecca was vulnerable." "Vulnerable?" I laughed, the sound echoing off the crystal chandeliers. "Mother was CEO of a $50 million foundation. She had full legal counsel present. Would you like to see the video recording of the signing? I'm sure Peyton still has it in the foundation's records." Peyton, our trustee liaison, cleared his throat. "I do, actually. Standard procedure for all major documents." Mother swayed slightly, and Scott had to steady her. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you?" I stepped closer, keeping my voice low. "Like you told me about tonight's announcement? Or about the board meetings you held without me? Or about the foundation funds Pearl's been using for her influencer lifestyle?" Van's livestream phone dropped to his side. "How did you—" "I know everything," I said simply. "Every transaction, every backdoor deal, every little plan you've been hatching since you married my mother, Scott. The photographers were having a field day. Tomorrow's society pages would be spectacular." "This is a mistake," Scott tried again, his charm cranking up to maximum wattage. "Surely we can discuss this privately, as a family." "Family." The word tasted bitter. "Let's talk about family. Peyton, would you mind sharing the audit results?" Peyton stepped forward, tablet in hand. "In the past 18 months, approximately $2.3 million in foundation funds were diverted to unauthorized personal expenses." Pearl's designer clutch hit the floor. "Daddy, you said those charges were approved." "They weren't," I said coldly, "and the board will be very interested in where that money went, along with the IRS, I imagine." Mother's face had gone from pale to ashen. "Scott, what is she talking about?" "Nothing, darling, just a misunderstanding." "Show her the receipts," I commanded Peyton. "The private jet to Monaco, the consulting fees paid to Pearl's makeup artist, the mysterious transfers to Van's crypto wallet." The crowd was riveted. Phones were out, recording every moment. This would be trending by midnight. "You planned this," Scott accused, his charm cracking. "You set us up." I smiled, the same practice smile Mother had taught me. "No, Scott, you did that all by yourself. I just waited." "Security," Scott barked. escort my stepdaughter out. Actually, Gideon interjected, as trustee, Ms. Tegan has full authority over Foundation property, including this building. He nodded to the security team. Gentlemen, please ensure Mr. Duncan and his children leave the premises. Mother reached for me as the guards approached. Tegan, please. The car will take you home, Mother, I said softly. We'll talk tomorrow, once you've had time to process everything. I turned to the stunned crowd. Thank you all for coming. The party is over. As Scott and his children were escorted out, Pearl screaming about her social media followers and Van threatening lawsuits, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the ballroom's gilt mirrors. I looked exactly like my mother had at my age. Elegant, composed, unstoppable. But unlike her, I'd learned never to show my cards until the perfect moment. The press would have their headlines tomorrow, but they had no idea what was coming next. Charity Empire Chaos. Heiress outmaneuvers. Family in stunning power play. I scrolled through the headlines on my phone while sipping coffee in my Upper West Side apartment. Pearl had already launched a tear-filled Instagram Live, painting herself as the victim of a calculated attack by a jealous stepsister. Van's Twitter thread called me a sociopath who'd fooled everyone. Mother wasn't answering her phone. A text from Gideon lit up my screen. Scott's lawyers called. They're threatening to challenge the trust agreement. Let them try, I typed back. We both knew it would only expose more of their secrets. My doorman called up. Ms. Tegan, your cousin Sela is here. I hadn't seen Sela in years, not since Mother had systematically cut off that entire branch of the family. Send her up. Sela burst through my door in a whirlwind of vintage leather jacket and righteous anger. I saw the news. That bastard Scott finally showed his true colors, huh? You haven't changed a bit, I laughed, hugging her. Neither have you. Still playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. She dropped onto my couch. Remember when your mom banned me from your Sweet 16 because I told her Scott gave me the creeps? She said you were spreading malicious gossip about a grieving man who just wanted to help our family. Sela's expression darkened. That's not all, he wanted to help himself too. What do you mean? She sat forward. Mom told me something before she died, about the year after your dad passed away. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. Tell me. Your mom was a mess that year, right? Barely functioning? I nodded. The memories were hazy. I'd been young, but I remembered Mother rarely leaving her room, missing important meetings, letting the foundation nearly collapse. Scott was helping her through it, coming over late at night, bringing her pills, isolating her from everyone else. Mom tried to intervene, but your mother shut her out. Said Scott was the only one who understood her pain. He was grooming her, I realized, bile rising in my throat. Setting himself up to take control. Mom thought there was more to it. She said your dad had been asking questions about the foundation's finances right before his accident. The word hit me like a slap. Accident? The car crash? Mom never believed it was random. Your dad was too careful a driver, and he'd just hired a forensic accountant. I was already moving, pulling boxes from my closet. Help me look through these. Dad's old papers, everything I could save before Scott convinced Mother to declutter the house. We spent hours sorting through yellowed documents, tax returns, old photographs. Then Sela held up a sealed envelope, the paper aged but intact. Look at this. It's dated 3 days before he died. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a draft of a new will, unsigned but complete. The provisions were drastically different from the one that was actually filed after his death. This version leaves everything in a trust, I murmured, scanning the pages. With strict oversight of the foundation's finances, Scott would never have gotten his hands on anything. But this isn't the will that was executed, is it? No. I pulled up the filed will on my laptop. This is what went through probate. Everything to Mother, no restrictions. Selah leaned in, comparing the documents. The signatures look different. Because one of them is forged. The certainty hit me like lightning. Scott didn't just manipulate my mother after Dad died. He made sure Dad couldn't stop him before. My phone buzzed, a news alert. Pearl had posted a video of Mother at their house, tearfully defending Scott, and denouncing me as disturbed and power-hungry. She's still under his spell, Selah said softly. Not for long. I took photos of both wills. I know someone who specializes in forensic document analysis. If we can prove the filed will was forged, you'll destroy him. No. I stood up, gathering the papers carefully. I'll expose him, and then I'll let the justice system destroy him. Selah grabbed my arm. Tegan, be careful. If he really did what we think he did to your dad, he's not dealing with a grieving widow this time. I met her eyes. He's dealing with me. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a video clip, obviously filmed secretly, showing Scott and Pearl in what looked like his study. Once we get rid of Tegan, it'll be easy, Scott was saying. Rebecca's getting forgetful anyway. A few more months, we'll have her declared incompetent. The foundation will be all ours. Pearl's laughter echoed through the phone's speaker. Poor Rebecca. She actually thinks you love her. I looked at Selah, a slow smile spreading across my face. Want to help me bring down a murderer? She grinned back. I thought you'd never ask. The signatures don't match, Dr. Martinez said, adjusting her magnifying equipment. Look at the pressure points, here and here. She pointed to specific areas on both wills. The filed version shows hesitation marks typical of forgery. The draft version matches your father's known signature patterns perfectly. I leaned closer to her computer screen, studying the detailed analysis. Could this stand up in court? Absolutely. I've testified in hundreds of cases. She clicked through more comparison images. There's more. The paper and ink dating on the filed will is inconsistent. It was backdated, probably created days or weeks after your father's death. My hands clenched into fists. Selah, sitting beside me, squeezed my shoulder. Thank you, Doctor. We'll need your full report. Back in my office at the foundation, Peyton was waiting with more ammunition. I found something in the audit, he said, spreading papers across my desk. Pearl's been running a shadow account through her lifestyle blog, claiming foundation donations as influencer partnerships. How much? Nearly $500,000, all authorized by Scott, of course. I was about to respond when shouting erupted in the hallway. Mother burst in, Scott close behind her. How dare you freeze our accounts? She screamed, mascara streaking her cheeks. After everything I've done for you. Done for me? I stood slowly, like letting your husband embezzle from Dad's foundation. These ridiculous accusations, Scott started, are documented, I cut him off. Every transaction, every forged signature, every penny Pearl stole while pretending to be a charity ambassador. You ungrateful little... Mother raised her hand to slap me. I caught her wrist mid-swing. The photographers who'd followed them in caught the moment perfectly. Careful, Mother. You're making a scene. You've lost your mind, she hissed. Scott would never... Like he'd never forge a will. I pulled out the forensic report. Or plan to have you declared mentally incompetent. Her face went white. What are you talking about? Show her the video, Selah called from the doorway. I played the clip on my phone. Mother's hands trembled as she watched Scott and Pearl laughing about their plans for her future. It's fake, she whispered. Scott, tell me it's fake. But Scott's face had turned to stone. You're going to believe some doctored video? Rebecca, she's manipulating you, like you manipulated Dad's will? I slid the forensic comparison across my desk. 3 days before his death, he drafted a new version, one that would have prevented you from ever touching the Foundation's money. Funny how that version never made it to probate. This is absurd, Scott snarled. Rebecca, we're leaving. Now. But Mother didn't move. She was staring at the signature analysis, her perfectly manicured nail tracing the differences. I remember, she said softly. James was worried about something. He said he needed to show me important papers, but then... Her voice broke. The accident. Convenient timing, Sella commented. Scott's charm vanished entirely. You have no proof of anything. Actually, Peyton stepped forward. We do. The Foundation's board meets in an hour. We'll be presenting evidence of financial misconduct, fraud, and possible criminal conspiracy. You can't... I can, I interrupted. I'm still trustee, remember? And unlike you, I have actual legal authority here. Mother swayed slightly. Scott, what did you do? Nothing you can prove, he snapped, grabbing her arm. Come on. I moved between them. Mother, you don't have to go with him. Of course she does. Scott's voice turned silky. I'm her husband. I love her. Unlike you, who's trying to destroy her. No. Mother pulled away from him. I'm staying. I need to know the truth. The look Scott gave her could have frozen hell. Fine. Believe your scheming daughter. But remember who's been paying your bills these past years. That would be the Foundation, I smiled. Which means it was actually me. Funny how that works. He stormed out, nearly knocking over an intern. Mother collapsed into a chair, looking suddenly old. The board meeting starts soon, I told her gently. You should be there. They need to hear everything. I don't know everything, she whispered. Then it's time you learned. I handed her the full forensic report. Starting with what really happened to Dad. She took the folder with shaking hands. Will you stay with me while I read it? For a moment, I saw the mother I'd lost years ago, before Scott, before the betrayals, before everything went wrong. But that mother was gone, and I wasn't that daughter anymore. Sailor will stay with you, I said, gathering my papers. I need to prepare for the board. As I left, I heard Mother start to cry. But I didn't look back. I had a meeting to run, and a family legacy to reclaim. The forensic expert's final report landed on my desk with the weight of a tombstone. 99.8% certainty of forgery, read the conclusion. Multiple indicators of document manipulation, including backdating and signature simulation. My phone buzzed. Another anonymous text. This time it was an audio file, recorded just hours ago at Scott's private club. Rebecca's getting suspicious. Pearl's voice crackled through the speaker. Maybe we should move faster. Already handled, Scott replied. I've spoken with Dr. Harrison. He's willing to document early signs of cognitive decline. Once we have that. The Foundation's ours, Van chimed in, and the old bat can rot in some luxury nursing home. I forwarded the recording to Gideon, then dialed Peyton. How's the audit going? Worse than we thought. Scott's been siphoning money through shell companies since before your father died. The pattern suggests... He was stealing even then, I finished. Dad must have discovered it. Which gives him motive for... Don't say it. Not yet. Just get me everything. I compiled it all into a single envelope. The forged will analysis, the audit trails, the recordings, and photos of Dad's original draft will. No return address, no note. Just cold, hard evidence. The messenger delivered it to Mother's penthouse at exactly 3 p.m. At 3:47, my phone rang. How long have you known? Mother's voice was barely a whisper. About the forgery? A few days? About Scott? Deep down, probably since Dad died. He's having me declared incompetent. She choked back a sob. My own husband. He's not your husband, I said flatly. He's a con man who saw a grieving widow with a fortune. Silence stretched between us, heavy with 15 years of manipulation and lies. The board meeting, she finally said. Tomorrow morning. Will you be there? I'm running it. I'd like to speak, to tell them everything. I gripped the phone tighter. Are you sure? Once you do this publicly? I've been a fool for 15 years. Let me try to be brave for 5 minutes. The next morning, the Foundation's boardroom filled with tense whispers and sidelong glances. Scott sat at his usual place, Pearl and Van flanking him like designer-clad bodyguards. Their lawyers formed a wall behind them. Mother entered last, wearing the same black Chanel suit she'd worn to Dad's funeral. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Before we begin, Scott stood, all wounded dignity. I'd like to address these ridiculous allegations. Sit down, I cut him off. You'll get your turn. I nodded to Mother. The floor is yours. She rose slowly, hands steady, as she adjusted the microphone. 15 years ago, my husband James died in what we all believed was an accident. The day before, he told me he needed to show me something important about the Foundation's finances. He never got the chance. Scott's lawyer started to object, but Mother's voice rode over him. 3 days earlier, he'd drafted a new will, one that would have protected our Foundation from exactly what happened next. That will never made it to probate. Instead, a forgery was filed, a fact confirmed by forensic analysis. She lifted the report. The same analysis shows the signature matches handwriting samples from someone else in this room. Her eyes locked on Scott. Someone who's been stealing from us for 16 years. Rebecca! Scott's voice dripped concern. You're confused. This is exactly why we've been worried about your mental state. Play the recording, Mother commanded. The audio of Scott's conversation about having her committed filled the room. Pearl's face went slack. Van started texting frantically. Furthermore, Mother continued, the Foundation's audit reveals systematic theft through shell companies dating back to before James died. Companies registered to one Scott Duncan. The lawyers were whispering urgently now. Scott's charm cracked completely. You can't prove anything. Actually, I stood, we can prove everything. The forensics, the fraud, the shell companies, and now we have proof you plan to forcibly commit Mother to gain control of her assets. That's criminal conspiracy and attempted financial elder abuse. You bitch, he snarled, lunging across the table. Security caught him before he reached me. As they dragged him back, Mother calmly picked up her purse. I've already spoken to the police, she announced. They're very interested in reopening the investigation into my first husband's death. Pearl burst into tears. Van bolted for the door, but found 2 detectives waiting. Mrs. Duncan, one of them said, we'll need you to come down to the station to make a formal statement. Of course. She turned to me, eyes brimming with tears. Tegan, I'm so sorry, for everything. I watched as they led Scott away in handcuffs, his children following in hysterics. Mother's words hung in the air between us, 15 years too late. My phone buzzed. A text from Sela. Dad would be proud. Maybe, but this wasn't about pride anymore. It was about justice, and we weren't finished yet. The garden behind our family estate hadn't changed in 15 years. Same marble fountains, same meticulously trimmed hedges, same stone bench where Dad used to read me stories. Mother sat there now, looking small against the gathering dusk. You wanted to talk, I said, keeping my distance. So talk. The police found more evidence. Her fingers twisted the strand of pearls Dad had given her. About the brake lines in James's car. They weren't worn out. They were cut. A cool evening breeze stirred the roses. We already knew that, didn't we? Deep down? Scott's secretary came forward. She continued. She remembers him making a phone call that morning, saying everything was taken care of. Her voice cracked. I let that monster raise you. You let that monster replace Dad, I corrected. There's a difference. Tegan, please. She patted the bench beside her. Just sit with me, like we used to. I remained standing. Why did you really call me here? She pulled an envelope from her bag. The police want me to sign over power of attorney. They're worried Scott might try something from jail. Her hands trembled. I want you to have it. No. Please, You need to handle this yourself, I said firmly. I'm not your safety net anymore. Then what do you want from me? Tears spilled down her cheeks. I've apologized. I'm cooperating with the investigation. I've admitted everything publicly. What else can I do? Nothing. I moved to the fountain, trailing my fingers through the cool water. That's the point. You can't fix this. But you're my daughter. And he killed my father. The words exploded out of me. He murdered Dad, stole everything we built, and you helped him do it. Every time you chose his lies over my truth, every time you let Pearl and Van humiliate me, every time you watched him dismantle Dad's legacy, you helped him. The garden fell silent, except for the fountain's gentle splash. You're right, she whispered. What? You're right. She stood, straightening her shoulders. I failed you, failed James, failed everything we believed in. She took a shaky breath. So tell me what happens now. I pulled out my own envelope. 2 options. 1. You sign control of your personal assets into a private trust, not the foundation, a separate entity. I'll arrange independent trustees, financial oversight, the works. You'll be comfortable, but not in control. And option 2, you refuse, try to maintain control, and I release everything we have to the media, every detail about Dad's murder, every fraudulent transaction, every recording of you defending Scott while he stole from us. Your reputation won't survive it. That's blackmail. That's consequences. I met her eyes. Choose. She stared at the envelope for a long moment. The trust. Would I still see you? No. Her head snapped up. But I'll ensure you're taken care of. But we're done, Mother. The moment you chose him over me, over Dad's memory, we were done. I didn't know he'd killed James. But you knew he was destroying everything Dad built, I countered. You knew what he was doing to me. You just didn't care enough to stop it. Fresh tears fell. I was weak. Yes, you were. I held out a pen. So now you have a choice. Be weak and lose everything, or be smart and salvage what you can. Her signature was barely legible through her tears. I had Gideon waiting outside to notarize it. What will you do now? She asked as I turned to leave. Run the foundation, honor Dad's legacy, live my life without looking over my shoulder for the next betrayal. And Scott? I smiled coldly. The police have everything they need. He'll never see freedom again. Pearl and Van? Last I heard, Pearl's fleeing to Europe, and Van's trying to delete his social media presence before the SEC investigates his crypto scam. I shrugged. They're not my problem anymore. Mother stood, taking a hesitant step toward me. And me? Am I really never going to see you again? I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who'd taught me strength and elegance, then taught me betrayal and survival. In the gathering darkness, she seemed both familiar and foreign. Maybe someday, I said finally, when this isn't raw anymore, when I can look at you and not see Dad's murder weapon. She flinched but nodded. I understand. Goodbye, Mother. As I walked away, she called out one last time. I did love you, Tegan. I still do. I paused but didn't turn around. I know. That's what makes it worse. The garden gate closed behind me with a final click. In my car, Sella waited with a bottle of Dad's favorite whiskey. "Ready?" she asked. "Almost." I pulled out my phone and sent one last text to Gideon. Release everything to the DA, all of it. Justice wasn't just about consequences. It was about truth. And finally, after 15 years, the truth was going to have its day. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived. 3 months of preliminary hearings had led to this. Scott's trial for Dad's murder, along with multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. "Ms. Tegan!" They thrust microphones at me. "How do you feel about your stepfather facing life in prison? Any comment on your stepsister Pearl's arrest in Monaco? Is it true Van has agreed to testify against his father?" I moved through them like smoke, Gideon clearing the path ahead. Inside, the marble halls echoed with whispers and camera clicks. Mother sat in the front row, looking frail in navy blue. She'd aged years in months. When Scott was led in, handcuffed and wearing prison orange instead of his usual bespoke suits, she turned away. "All rise," the bailiff called. The prosecution's case was methodical, devastating. Financial records showing Scott's theft from the foundation dating back to before Dad's death. The mechanic who'd been paid to tamper with the brake lines. Dad's original will, with proof of forgery. Then came Van, looking nothing like the polished influencer he'd once been. "Dad told us it was his chance," he testified, avoiding Scott's glare. "Said James was getting suspicious, asking questions. The accident had to happen before the new will was filed." "And you kept this information secret for 15 years?" the prosecutor asked. "He's my father." Van's voice cracked. "But I can't live with it anymore." During a recess, Salah touched my arm. "Pearl's being extradited next week. Her Instagram's gone dark." "Good." I watched Scott conferring with his lawyers. "Has Mother's statement been prepared?" "She's ready." When Mother took the stand, the room fell silent. She looked directly at Scott as she spoke. "James told me he'd found irregularities in the foundation's accounts. He was meeting with forensic accountants the next day." Her voice strengthened. "That meeting never happened. Instead, my husband died on his way to work, and Scott was there to comfort me before they'd even recovered the body." Scott's lawyer tried to paint her as confused, manipulated by a vengeful daughter. Mother's response silenced the courtroom. "I was manipulated," she agreed, "but not by Tegan. She tried to warn me for years. I chose not to see it because seeing it meant facing what I'd allowed into our lives, into our home." She turned to me. "Into my daughter's life." The jury took less than 6 hours to reach a verdict. On the count of first-degree murder, we find the defendant guilty. Scott lunged to his feet, but guards were already moving. On multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy, we find the defendant guilty. Pearl's face filled the courtroom monitors as she was led off a plane in handcuffs, her designer luggage abandoned on the tarmac. "The defendant will return for sentencing in 2 weeks," the judge announced. Outside, the media frenzy exploded. I stepped to the microphones, Sella and Gideon flanking me. "Justice delayed is still justice," I began. 15 years ago, James Ellis was murdered because he discovered theft within his own foundation. Today, his killer has been convicted. The Ellis Foundation will continue its mission of helping others, with new oversight and transparency measures in place. "What about your mother?" someone shouted. "Will she face charges?" "My mother has cooperated fully with authorities and will continue to do so. She's as much a victim of Scott's manipulation as anyone." I paused, though some wounds take longer to heal than others. Mother stood at the courthouse doors, watching. I gave her the slightest nod before turning away. Ms. Tegan, another reporter. What happens to the foundation now? We go back to work, I said simply. We honor my father's legacy by doing what he always intended, helping people, transparently and honestly. Later, in my office, Selah poured champagne while Gideon reviewed sentencing guidelines. Life without parole is likely, he said, plus consecutive terms for the financial crimes. Pearl's looking at 10 years minimum, Selah added. Van might get leniency for testifying. I stood at the window, watching the city lights flicker on. Send the sentencing recommendation to Mother's lawyers. She should be prepared. Are you ever going to talk to her again? Selah asked softly. Maybe. Someday. I turned back to them. But right now we have work to do. The foundation needs rebuilding. To James Ellis, Selah raised her glass. To justice, Gideon added. I thought of Dad, of his dreams for the foundation, of all the good we could still do in his name. To truth, I said. However long it takes to come out. The city sparkled below, full of possibilities and fresh starts. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new stories in the press, new wounds to heal. But tonight, finally, we had justice. And that was enough. The autumn wind scattered leaves across Dad's headstone as I knelt to clear them away. Fresh flowers, Mother's weekly offering, lay wilted against the marble. I replaced them with a single white rose and the envelope I'd carried for 15 years. I brought you something, I said softly. Your real will, the one you wrote to protect us. I placed it against the stone. You can rest now. They can't hurt anyone anymore. My phone buzzed. Selah sending updates from the Foundation's latest board meeting. Under new leadership, we'd expanded our reach, funding domestic violence shelters and legal aid for fraud victims. Dad would have loved that irony. Ms. Tegan? A gentle voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to find Peyton, our trustee liaison, looking apologetic. I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's something you need to see. He held out a tablet displaying security footage from the cemetery's entrance. Mother stood there, clutching her usual flowers, clearly debating whether to enter. She comes every Wednesday, Peyton said. Stands there for about an hour, then leaves. How long has this been happening? Since the sentencing. I watched the screen as Mother paced the entrance, her designer coat flapping in the wind. Even on camera, I could see her hands shaking. Would you like me to ask her to leave? I studied her image. This woman who'd been both victim and enabler, both mother and stranger. No, let her come. Minutes later, I heard her footsteps on the grass. They stopped abruptly when she saw me. Tegan. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I'll go. Stay. I didn't turn around. He was your husband, before Scott poisoned everything. She moved closer, her heels sinking slightly into the soft earth. I brought his favorites, yellow roses. He hated yellow roses. I finally looked at her. That was Scott's preference, not Dad's. He loved white roses, like the ones at your wedding. Mother's flowers slipped from her fingers. I didn't remember. You stopped remembering a lot of things after Scott arrived. Is that why you're here? She asked. To remind me of my failures? No. I stood, brushing grass from my knees. I'm here because the Foundation just launched a new program. Legal support for families affected by financial fraud and domestic abuse. I saw the announcement. A ghost of pride crossed her face. It's brilliant. It's what Dad would have wanted. I gestured to the envelope by his headstone. His real will focused on protecting people, not profits. Scott knew that. That's why he had to get rid of it. Get rid of him. Mother swayed slightly. I caught her arm, steadying her against the stone. I don't deserve your help, she whispered. This isn't about deserving. I released her. It's about choosing. Every day, we choose who we want to be. Scott chose greed. Pearl chose denial. Van chose redemption, finally. And what did I choose? Fear. I met her eyes. But you can choose differently now. She knelt slowly, touching Dad's name on the stone. I miss him. The real him, not the sanitized version Scott made me remember. Tell me about him. The words surprised us both. Tell me something true. He used to sing in the kitchen, she said softly. Horrible off-key Beatles songs while making Sunday breakfast. Scott said it was undignified, so I stopped remembering. What else? For the next hour, we sat by Dad's grave, piecing together real memories from beneath Scott's careful lies. With each story, Mother's voice grew stronger, more certain. Finally, I stood. The Foundation's hosting a fundraiser next week for the new legal aid program. I saw the invitation. You should come. I straightened my coat. As a survivor, not just a donor. Show others they can rebuild. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You'd allow that? I'm not allowing anything. I'm offering you a choice. I turned to leave, then paused. Dad always said everyone deserves a chance to write their own story, even if they messed up the first draft. Tegan? She called as I walked away. Thank you, not for forgiving me, but for showing me the truth. I looked back at her. This woman who'd lost herself and was finally finding her way back. Truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth it. The autumn wind picked up again, scattering leaves and flower petals across Dad's grave. Mother remained kneeling there, touching his name, remembering. And for the first time in 15 years, I left the cemetery feeling lighter. Some stories end with justice, others end with truth. The best ones end with both. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they also end with hope.
The vanilla buttercream frosting trembled in my hands as I piped "Happy Birthday, Annabelle" onto the cake. 9 perfect roses, one for each year of my daughter's life. Everything had to be perfect today, even if I was running on 3 hours of sleep and enough coffee to fuel a small army. My name is Heidi, and I've spent the last 4 years making sure my daughter never feels the void her father left when he walked out on us. Today would test that resolve more than ever. Mum, is Daddy really coming? Annabelle's voice carried from the living room where she was arranging party favours in rainbow order. Yes, sweetie, he promised. I steadied my hand on the last rose, refusing to let my anxiety ruin the decorations. The doorbell chimed and I heard Nancy's familiar voice greeting Annabelle. There's my birthday girl. Nancy swept into the kitchen, her arms full of gift bags. Heidi, honey, you look like you're about to snap that piping bag in half. Is it that obvious? I forced my shoulders to relax. Only to someone who's known you since college. She set down the bags and grabbed my hands. Listen, if Kian acts up today, I'll personally throw him face first into that beautiful cake. I managed to laugh. Don't tempt me, I spent 6 hours on this thing. The doorbell started ringing more frequently as parents dropped off their kids. Soon the house filled with the chaos of 9-year-olds playing party games. I kept glancing at the clock, knowing Kian would make his entrance at the last possible moment. He always did. When he finally arrived 2 hours late, my heart stopped. Because he wasn't alone. Daddy! Annabelle rushed to the door but froze mid-step when she saw the woman beside him. Delilah, his former assistant, stood there in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Princess! Kian scooped up our daughter, but his eyes locked onto mine over her shoulder. I hope you don't mind, but I brought someone special. This is Delilah, and well... He paused for dramatic effect, something he knew I always hated. She's your new stepmom. The room went silent. Even the kids seemed to sense the tension, their game of musical chairs forgotten. Nancy appeared at my side, her hand squeezing my arm in silent support. When? The word came out stronger than I felt. Last weekend in Vegas. Delilah's voice was honey-sweet as she showed off a ring that could probably pay for Annabelle's college tuition. We wanted to surprise everyone. Annabelle wiggled out of Kian's arms, her face scrunched in confusion. But Daddy, you said you were sick last weekend. That's why you couldn't come to my recital. I watched Kian's smile falter for a split second. Princess, sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices, but I'm here now and I brought you the biggest present ever. Actually, Nancy stepped forward, her voice carrying across the room, we were just about to do cake. Kids, who wants to sing happy birthday? The children's excitement returned instantly, and they scrambled toward the dining room. As I carried out the cake, my hands steady despite the storm inside me, I caught Kian watching me. That same smug look he'd worn 4 years ago when he'd announced he was leaving, confident that his charm and money would shield him from any consequences. But this time was different. This time, I had something he didn't know about. Make a wish, sweetheart, I said as Annabelle beamed at her candles. She closed her eyes tight, and in that moment I made a wish too. Not for revenge, exactly, but for justice. For all the recitals missed, the weekend visits cancelled, the tears I dried in the middle of the night. Mrs. Nelson? A deep voice caught my attention. Robert, Kian's boss, stood nearby with his daughter. I hadn't even noticed him arrive. Beautiful party. I hear Kian's up for that VP position next month. Is he now? I smiled, thinking of the folder hidden in my desk drawer upstairs, the one containing every broken promise, every lie, every document that proved exactly who Kian MacDonald really was. As my daughter blew out her candles to a chorus of cheers, I watched Kian pull Delilah close, whispering something in her ear that made her giggle. They looked perfect together, just like he'd planned. But plans can change. And, sometimes, karma needs a little push in the right direction. Mom? Annabelle tugged at my sleeve. Can we open presents now? Of course, baby. I smoothed her hair, already plotting my next move. Let's make this a birthday no one will forget. After the cake, I escaped to the kitchen under the pretense of getting more paper plates. Nancy followed, closing the door behind her. Okay, spill it. You've got that look, she said, leaning against the counter. What look? The same look you had before you exposed that corrupt professor in college. You're planning something. I pulled open a drawer, pretending to search for plates I didn't need. He got married, Nancy. In Vegas, while he was supposed to be at his daughter's dance recital. I know, honey, he's trash. Nancy lowered her voice as children's laughter filtered through the door. But whatever you're thinking about doing, did you see Robert out there? I interrupted, closing the drawer with more force than necessary. Kian's boss? The one who's about to promote him to VP? Heidi. Nancy's tone carried a warning. You know what the worst part is? My hand shook as I gripped the counter. Last month, when I asked Kian for help with Annabelle's medical bills, he claimed he was broke. Broke. But he could afford that rock on Delilah's finger. A soft knock interrupted us. Annabelle peeked in, her party crown slightly askew. Mum? Daddy wants to make a speech. Of course he does, I muttered, but plastered on a smile. We'll be right there, sweetie. Back in the living room, Kian had commanded center stage, champagne flute in hand. The parents gathered around while the kids continued playing in the background. Delilah stood beside him, practically glowing as she gazed up at her new husband. I'd like to make a toast, Kian announced, flashing that $1 million smile that once made my knees weak. To my beautiful daughter, Annabelle. 9 years ago, you made me a father, and today you've given me another gift, accepting Delilah into our family with such grace. I felt bile rise in my throat. Annabelle hadn't accepted anything. She'd barely had time to process the bomb they'd dropped. And to Heidi, he continued, turning toward me. Thank you for being such an understanding ex-wife. Robert chuckled, raising his glass. You're a lucky man, Kian. Not many divorced couples can be this civil. Oh, we're just getting started, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Excuse me for a moment. I climbed the stairs to my home office, my fingers trailing along the wall to steady myself. The folder sat in my desk drawer, exactly where I'd left it. 4 years of documented lies, broken promises, and something much worse. Evidence of his drinking problem that he'd managed to hide from everyone at work. Don't do it. Nancy stood in the doorway. Think about Annabelle. I am thinking about Annabelle. I pulled out the folder. Every time she cries because he cancels at the last minute. Every time she asks why Daddy doesn't love her enough to show up. He's about to become VP of the company, Nancy. You know what that means? More responsibility, more travel, more broken promises. And if you destroy his career, then maybe he'll finally face consequences for once in his privileged life. I opened the folder, revealing photos of Kian passed out in his car outside bars, screenshots of texts cancelling on Annabelle, bank statements showing large withdrawals before claiming poverty. Nancy stepped closer, her eyes widening at the contents. How long have you been collecting this? Since the divorce, I knew. I knew someday he'd push too far. I closed the folder. He's not just hurting Annabelle anymore. Did you see how young Delilah is? He's already doing to her what he did to me, and she doesn't even realize it. Mom? Annabelle's voice drifted up the stairs. Where are you? We're opening presents. Coming, sweetie, I called back, then turned to Nancy. I have to do this, not just for revenge, but because it's right. Nancy studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but whatever happens, I'm right here with you. We descended the stairs to find Kian holding court in the living room, one arm around Delilah as he regaled Robert with stories about his latest business deals. Annabelle sat cross-legged by her pile of presents, but her eyes kept drifting to her father and his new wife. I clutched the folder behind my back, my heart pounding. One move could change everything, destroy his career, hurt Annabelle. But as I watched him perform for his audience, completely ignoring his daughter on her birthday, I knew what I had to do. Kian, I said, stepping forward. Before we open presents, there's something I need to share with everyone. The folder felt heavy in my hands as I approached him, years of pain and anger condensed into manila and paper. Delilah's smile faltered as she noticed my expression, but it was Robert's curious look that gave me the final push I needed. Sometimes karma needs evidence to do its job. Actually, Kian interrupted, setting down his champagne flute, let's do presents first. Princess, want to see what Daddy got you? Kian. My voice cut through the room like ice. This can't wait. I placed the folder on the coffee table between us. The room grew quiet, save for the muffled giggles of children playing in the backyard. Thank God Nancy had the foresight to usher them outside. What's this? Robert asked, leaning forward with interest. Just some old paperwork, Kian said quickly, reaching for the folder. I placed my hand firmly on top of it. You know what's interesting about paperwork? I smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. It tells stories, like how someone can claim they're too broke to help with their daughter's medical bills while spending thousands at bars and casinos. Kian's face paled. Heidi, don't. Or how someone can miss their daughter's recital claiming to be sick when really they were in Vegas getting married. I opened the folder, pulling out a stack of photos. But my personal favourite is how someone can drive drunk multiple times, yet somehow keep it quiet at work. Robert straightened in his chair. Excuse me? She's lying. Delilah jumped in, her perfectly manicured hand gripping Kian's arm. This is just a bitter ex-wife trying to cause trouble. Pictures don't lie. I spread the photos across the table. Neither do police reports, or bank statements, or the dozens of texts cancelling on your daughter at the last minute. The room fell silent as Robert picked up one of the photos. It showed Kian slumped over his steering wheel outside the Red Door bar, dated just 3 weeks ago. Mum? Annabelle's small voice made me freeze. She stood in the doorway clutching her new stuffed unicorn. What's happening? Nothing, Princess, Kian said quickly. Your mum's just showing some boring grown-up stuff. Is that you in the pictures, Daddy? She stepped closer, peering at the scattered photos. Why are you sleeping in your car? Annabelle, honey. Nancy appeared behind her. Let's go check on your friends outside. I think Sarah's looking for you.
But Annabel stood her ground, her 9-year-old face set with determination. "Is this why you didn't come to my recital? Were you sleeping in your car again?" The silence that followed was deafening. Delilah's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Robert gathered the photos with trembling hands, his face growing darker with each one he examined. "Kian," Robert's voice was dangerously quiet. "My office. First thing Monday morning." "Robert, please!" Kian stood, desperation cracking through his polished facade. "I can explain everything. These photos are old, they're— 3 weeks ago isn't old," I cut in. "Neither is last weekend in Vegas." "You vindictive bitch," he hissed under his breath. "Daddy!" Annabel gasped. "That's a bad word." "I think," Nancy stepped forward, her hand on Annabel's shoulder, "it's time for cake and ice cream in the backyard. Who's with me?" The remaining adults quickly followed Nancy and Annabel outside, leaving me alone with Kian, Delilah, and Robert. The sound of children singing Happy Birthday drifted through the windows, a surreal backdrop to the tension in the room. "How long?" Robert demanded. "How long have you been hiding this drinking problem?" "I don't have a problem," Kian insisted. "This is all being blown out of proportion." "Really?" I pulled out one final piece of paper. "Because according to this credit card statement, you spent over $5,000 at bars last month alone. The same month you told me you couldn't afford Annabel's inhaler." Delilah snatched the statement, her eyes widening as she read. "This is from our joint account, the one you said was for emergencies." "Delilah, baby." Kian reached for her, but she stepped back. "Don't baby me. We just maxed out my credit cards for our wedding because you said all your money was tied up in investments." Robert stood, gathering the folder and its contents. "I've seen enough. Kian, this isn't just about the VP position anymore. We need to seriously discuss your future with the company." As Robert headed for the door, Kian's carefully constructed world crumbling around him, I felt no joy. Only a heavy, sad certainty that this had been necessary. "You've ruined everything," he spat at me. "No, Kian." I looked toward the backyard where Annabel was blowing out her candles again, surrounded by friends. "You did that all on your own. I just showed everyone the truth." Through the window, I could see Annabel making her wish. This time, I hoped it would be for something better than a father who couldn't keep his promises. The party continued outside, but the atmosphere in my living room had turned toxic. Kian paced back and forth while Delilah sat on the couch frantically typing on her phone. "Who are you texting?" Kian snapped at her. "My sister," Delilah replied without looking up, "asking if I can stay with her for a few days." "You're not going anywhere?" He reached for her phone, but she pulled it away. "Don't." Her voice trembled. "Just don't." I moved toward the kitchen, wanting to give them space, but Kian's voice stopped me. "This isn't over, Heidi." "It should be," I said, turning back. "Go home, sober up, and figure out how to be a better father." "A better father?" He laughed, harsh and hollow. "I provide for her. I buy her things. What else does a 9-year-old need?" "Time," I said. "Attention. Love. Basic things that shouldn't need explaining." A knock at the door interrupted us. Robert had returned, his face grim. "Forgot my briefcase." He paused, looking at Kian. "The board will hear about this first thing Monday. I suggest you come prepared with an explanation." "Robert, please." Kian's voice shifted to that smooth, persuasive tone I knew too well. "We've been friends for years. You know me." "Do I?" Robert retrieved his briefcase. "Because the Kian I thought I knew wouldn't drive drunk or abandon his child. I never—" "Save it for Monday," Robert turned to me. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Heidi. As a father myself, I can't ignore this kind of behavior." After Robert left, Delilah stood abruptly. "I need some air." She hurried outside, still clutching her phone. "Happy now?" Kian rounded on me. "You've destroyed everything I've worked for." "Everything you've worked for?" I stepped closer, anger finally breaking through. "What about what I've worked for? Do you know how many extra shifts I picked up to pay for Annabel's medical bills? How many nights I stayed up helping her with homework while you were passed out in bar parking lots?" "Mom," Annabelle's voice made us both jump. She stood in the doorway, cake frosting smeared on her cheek. Are you and Daddy fighting? No, sweetie, I started, but Kyan cut me off. Yes, we are, because your mother just ruined Daddy's job. Kian, I hissed, but the damage was done. Annabelle's lower lip trembled. Is that true, Mom? Before I could answer, Nancy appeared behind her. Hey, kiddo, Tommy's about to break the piñata. You don't want to miss that, right? I want to know what's happening, Annabelle insisted, her voice small but determined. I knelt down to her level. Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices, and those choices have consequences. Like when I didn't do my homework and had to miss recess. Something like that, I managed a smile, but much bigger. Through the window, I saw Delilah pacing in the backyard, still on her phone. She was gesturing frantically, and even from here I could see tears on her cheeks. Is Delilah going to be my stepmom anymore? Annabelle asked. Kian made a choked sound. Of course she is. Everything's fine. Don't lie to her, I snapped. Not anymore. Then you explain it, he challenged. Explain to our daughter how you just couldn't let me be happy. Nancy stepped forward. Okay, that's enough. Annabelle, honey, let's go join your friends. But now, sweetie. Nancy's tone left no room for argument. She led Annabelle outside, shooting me a supportive look over her shoulder. As soon as they left, Kian's phone buzzed. He checked it, his face darkening. The board wants to meet tonight, not Monday. Tonight. He looked at me with pure hatred. I hope you're satisfied. I'm not, I said honestly. I wish none of this was necessary. I wish you'd just been the father Annabelle deserves. Through the window, I watched Delilah end her call and wipe her eyes. She looked at her wedding ring, then slowly slipped it off her finger. Your new wife is about to leave you, I said quietly. Your job is in jeopardy. But you know what the saddest part is? You're still not thinking about how this affects Annabelle. Don't tell me what I'm thinking, he growled, but his eyes darted to the window where Delilah was approaching, ring in hand. You should go, I said. Deal with your board meeting. Talk to your wife. But mostly figure out how to explain to your daughter why you keep choosing everything else over her. As Delilah entered, her mascara streaked and her hand clutching her wedding ring, I stepped out onto the back porch. The sound of children laughing mixed with the crack of the piñata breaking open, candy raining down like tiny meteors of joy. Sometimes the hardest consequences to face are the ones we bring upon ourselves. The party wound down as parents arrived to collect their sugar-buzzed children. Each time the doorbell rang, I held my breath, expecting Kian to reappear. He and Delilah had left an hour ago in separate cars, leaving Annabelle clutching her unopened present from them. Can I open Daddy's gift now? She asked, sitting cross-legged on the floor amid wrapping paper debris. Of course, sweetie. I sat beside her, watching as she carefully unwrapped the large box. Inside was an iPad Pro, still in its sealed package. Annabelle's face lit up for a moment, then fell. This is like the one he got me for Christmas. What do you mean? The one he took back because he said it was too expensive. She pushed the box away. Is he going to take this one back too? Nancy, who'd stayed to help clean up, exchanged a look with me over Annabelle's head. Hey, kiddo, she said. Want to help me pack up the leftover cake? No. Annabelle's voice was firm. I want someone to tell me what's really going on. Why did Daddy leave? Why was Delilah crying? Why did Mr. Robert look so angry? I took a deep breath. Remember when we talked about telling the truth, even when it's hard? She nodded. Well, Daddy hasn't been telling the truth about a lot of things. And today those untruths caught up with him. Like when I lied about eating cookies before dinner and you found the crumbs. Despite everything, I had to smile. Something like that. But bigger lies that hurt more people. The doorbell rang again. Through the window, I saw Robert's car in the driveway. Nancy, could you... Come on, Annabelle, Nancy said quickly. Let's go count your birthday money. Maybe we can find something better than an iPad to buy. As they headed upstairs, I opened the door. Robert looked exhausted, his tie loosened and jacket wrinkled. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said, but I thought you should know. The board meeting just ended. Already? I glanced at the clock. It had only been 2 hours. It didn't take long. The evidence was compelling. He ran a hand through his grey hair. We've suspended Kian pending a full investigation, the DUI incidents alone. He shook his head. I never wanted to destroy his career, I said softly. I just couldn't watch him hurt Annabelle anymore. You did the right thing. Robert's voice was firm. I have daughters too. If I'd known sooner. A crash from upstairs made us both jump. No! Annabelle's voice carried down the stairs. I want to talk to Daddy. I found her in my office, my phone in her hands, tears streaming down her face. Nancy stood helplessly nearby. He won't answer, Annabelle sobbed. I called 4 times. Oh, baby. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her small body shake with sobs. Is it my fault? She whispered against my shoulder. Did I do something wrong? No, I said fiercely. None of this is your fault. Your daddy. He's dealing with some grown-up problems right now. Problems he created himself, Nancy added, then winced when I shot her a look. Robert cleared his throat from the doorway. Annabelle, may I say something? She lifted her tear-stained face and nodded. Sometimes, he said, kneeling to her level, grown-ups make mistakes, big ones, and when they do, they have to face consequences. But that doesn't mean they don't love their children. Then why won't he answer? She demanded. Because, I said, smoothing her hair, right now he's probably feeling very scared and angry, but that's about him, not you, never you. My phone buzzed in Annabelle's hand, a text from Delilah. I'm at my sister's. The ring is in his mailbox. I'm so sorry about everything. Is that Daddy? Annabelle asked hopefully. No, sweetie. I took the phone gently. But you know what? It's still your birthday. And we have leftover cake, and Nancy's here, and you haven't even opened half your presents yet. I don't want the iPad, she said suddenly. Can we take it back? Of course. And buy books instead? I hugged her tighter, proud of her resilience, even as my heart broke for her pain. We can buy all the books you want. Robert stood, straightening his tie. I should go. Heidi will be in touch about the investigation. After he left, Nancy brought up 3 slices of cake, and we sat on the floor of my office, eating straight from the plates like we were all 9 years old. Mom, Annabelle asked between bites, are you sure Daddy still loves me? I met Nancy's eyes over Annabelle's head, seeing my own pain reflected there. Sometimes the hardest part of parenting isn't protecting our children from others' mistakes. It's helping them understand why those mistakes happened in the first place. The doorbell rang at midnight. Nancy had gone home an hour ago, and Annabelle was finally asleep, clutching her old teddy bear instead of the new iPad. I knew who it was before I opened the door. You've got some nerve showing up here, I said, stepping onto the porch and closing the door behind me. Kian stood there, his perfect appearance from earlier now dishevelled, his eyes red. I need to see her. She's asleep and you're drunk, he swayed slightly. I lost everything today. My job, my wife, my reputation. Because of you. Because of you, I corrected. I just exposed what you did. You're the one who did it. Please, his voice cracked. Just let me explain to her. She won't answer my calls. She's 9, Kian. She shouldn't have to answer calls from her drunk father at midnight. A car slowed as it passed my house, and I recognized Delilah behind the wheel. She parked across the street but didn't get out, just sat there watching us. She left me, Kian said, following my gaze. Took all her things and left. Can you blame her? You lied to her too. He slumped against the porch railing. The board suspended me. Pending investigation. Do you know what that means? No salary, no benefits, no more expensive bars, I cut in. No more gambling with money that should have gone to your daughter's medical bills. I can change, he whispered. I'll get help. I'll do whatever it takes. Good. You should. But not for me. Not for your job. Not even for Delilah. Do it for Annabelle. The front door creaked open behind me. Annabelle stood there in her unicorn pajamas, eyes wide. Daddy? Princess? Kian straightened, trying to hide his intoxicated state. I came to say, you smell like the stuff Mom says is only for grown-ups. She wrinkled her nose. I had a bad day, sweetheart. Because of the pictures. The ones of you sleeping in your car. He flinched. Those pictures, they don't tell the whole story. Then what is the whole story? She demanded, suddenly sounding older than her 9 years. Why did you miss my recital? Why did you lie? Across the street, Delilah finally got out of her car. She walked toward us slowly, her heels clicking on the pavement. I think, she said, reaching the bottom of the porch steps, your daddy needs to get some help before he can answer those questions. Delilah, Kian turned to her, hope flashing across his face. You came back. Not for you. She looked at Annabelle. I came to say goodbye properly. You deserve that much. You're not going to be my stepmom anymore? No, sweetie, I'm sorry. Annabelle nodded slowly. That's okay. Mom says sometimes people have to leave to take care of themselves. I felt a surge of pride through my tears. When did my little girl get so wise? Kian, Delilah's voice was firm, your sister's waiting at your house. She's going to take you to that rehabilitation center we talked about. You called Rachel? He looked betrayed. Someone had to. You need help. Daddy? Annabelle's small voice cut through the tension. Are you sick? Like when I had to go to the hospital for my breathing? Kian's face crumpled. Something like that, princess. But different. I haven't been making good choices. Will getting help make you better? So you can come to my recitals? I hope so. He reached for her, then stopped himself, looking at me for permission. I nodded slightly and he hugged our daughter, careful to keep his distance from me. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. Prove it, I said quietly. Not with words or presents or promises, with actions. Delilah touched his arm gently. Rachel's waiting. It's time. He released Annabelle, stepping back. Will you let me call her when I'm better? That depends on you, I said. Show us you're serious about getting help. Show her you can be the father she deserves. As Delilah led him to her car, Annabelle slipped her hand into mine. Mom, is Daddy going to the hospital? Something like that. A special place where they help people make better choices. We watched the car drive away, Annabelle's hand warm in mine. After a moment, she looked up at me. Can we take the iPad back tomorrow? Of course, why? I want to donate the money to the hospital, the one that helps me breathe better. She paused. Maybe they can help other kids while Daddy gets better too. I pulled her close, marveling at how children can sometimes teach us more about forgiveness and hope than we could ever teach them. 3 days after the party, Robert called me into his office. The corporate building loomed over me, all glass and steel, as I rode the elevator to the executive floor. Thank you for coming, he said, gesturing to a chair. We need to discuss some complications. Complications? He slid a folder across his desk. Not mine, but one bearing the company logo. Kian's lawyers have been in touch. They're claiming wrongful termination and defamation. He wasn't terminated, I said. He was suspended. They're arguing the suspension itself is damaging his reputation. Robert removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes. They want us to reinstate him immediately with full benefits and a public apology. Or what? Or they'll sue. Not just the company, but you personally. My hands clenched in my lap. He's trying to bully me into silence. Again. A knock at the door interrupted us. Delilah entered, looking professional but tired. Sorry I'm late, she said, taking the seat next to me. Traffic was horrible. You asked her to come? I turned to Robert. I asked to come, Delilah corrected, because I have something you both need to see. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through it before placing it on the desk. A video played. Kian in their kitchen, clearly drunk, ranting about the company, about me, about everyone he felt had wronged him. I recorded it the night before Annabelle's party, Delilah said quietly. I was scared. He'd been getting worse. When was this taken? Robert asked, leaning forward. Last Friday, the night before we went to Vegas. She swallowed hard. He said we had to get married right away before something happened. Before what happened? Before the audit. Robert and I both looked at him. He knew the quarterly audit was coming up. He'd been falsifying expense reports, hiding his drinking binges as client meetings. Robert's face darkened. How long? At least 6 months. Maybe longer. She pulled up more videos, more evidence. I started documenting everything after I found him passed out in his office one morning. I thought I could help him change. By marrying him? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. By giving him an ultimatum. Get help or I'd show these to the board. She met my eyes. But then he dragged me to Vegas instead. Said everything would be fine if we just got married right away. I was stupid enough to believe him. Robert stood, pacing behind his desk. This changes everything. With this evidence, the lawsuit won't stand. There's more, Delilah said. The night of the party, after the board meeting, he didn't go to the rehabilitation center. His sister waited for hours, but he never showed up. My blood ran cold. Then where is he? At the Red Door Bar. He's been there every night since. She showed us a final photo. Kian slumped at the bar, dated just last night. He's spiraling, and I'm worried he'll do something desperate. Like sue everyone who tried to help him, I said bitterly. Like hurt himself. Or someone else. Delilah's voice cracked. He keeps talking about making things right, but his idea of right is scary. Robert picked up his phone. I'm calling our legal team. With this evidence, we can file a countersuit and— No, I interrupted. No more suits. No more legal battles. I stood up. I'm going to the Red Door. Heidi, don't! Delilah grabbed my arm. He's dangerous right now. He's Annabelle's father. And he's drowning. I pulled free. Sometimes rock bottom needs a witness. Then I'm coming with you, she said, standing. Me too, Robert added. Let me call security. No. I headed for the door. Just me and Delilah. He needs to see what he's losing, not what he's fighting. In the elevator, Delilah turned to me. Why are you doing this, after everything he's done? Because my daughter asked me this morning when Daddy was coming home from the hospital. I pressed the lobby button. I'm tired of lying to her. And if he refuses help, then at least we can tell her we tried. That's more than he's done so far. As we drove to the Red Door, I thought about the folder that started all this. How I'd thought exposing his secrets would bring justice, when really, it had just revealed how deep his problems went. Sometimes karma doesn't just deliver consequences. It delivers opportunities for change. The question was whether Kian would finally take this opportunity, or if he'd keep drowning in his own denial. The Red Door's neon sign flickered in the afternoon sun as we parked. Through the window, I could see him at the bar, exactly where Delilah's photo had shown him. Ready? Delilah asked. No, I admitted. But Annabelle deserves better than a father who hides in bars, so let's go give him one last chance to be that better person. The Red Door's stale air hit us as we entered. Kian didn't look up when we approached, just stared into his glass like it held all the answers he'd been searching for. You're done, I said quietly. He laughed, hollow and bitter. Come to gloat? No, come to give you a choice. I placed my phone on the bar, showing a photo of Annabelle at her recital, the one he'd missed. You can stay here, drink yourself into oblivion, and lose everything that matters. Or you can get up right now and come with us. Where? He finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot. To another board meeting, another humiliation. To rehab, Delilah said. For real this time. The bartender drifted over. Another round? No, I said firmly. He's done. You can't decide that for me, Kian snapped. No, but Annabelle can. I played a video on my phone. Annabelle sitting on her bed, recorded this morning. Hi, Daddy. Her voice rang clear through the speaker. Mum says you're sick, like when I can't breathe right. Remember when you took me to the hospital and said the doctors would make me better? Maybe other doctors can make you better too. I miss you. Kian's hand shook as he reached for the phone. Turn it off. She made me promise to show you. I let the video play. She said maybe you just needed to remember what matters. I don't deserve her, he whispered. No, you don't, Delilah agreed. Not right now, but you could. The lawyers— Drop the lawsuit, I cut in. Use that money for treatment instead. Show her you can be better. He stared at his glass for a long moment. What if I fail? Then you fail trying to be better, instead of succeeding at being worse. The bartender returned. Last call? Kian pushed the glass away. No, I'm done. Outside, Rachel's car waited in the parking lot. She stepped out, relief washing over her face when she saw her brother walking under his own power. The center has a bed ready, she said. They can take you now. Kian turned to me. Will you tell her that I'm really going this time? I'll tell her you're fighting to get better. The rest is up to you. I'll send you updates, Rachel promised, as she helped him into the car. Weekly reports if you want them. No, I shook my head. Let him earn the right to give updates himself, when he's ready. As Rachel's car pulled away, Delilah touched my arm. Why did you really come today? Because revenge wasn't the answer. I watched the car disappear around the corner. Annabelle deserves to know we tried everything before letting go. My phone buzzed. A text from Nancy. Annabelle's asking about dinner. Everything okay? Want to grab pizza? I asked Delilah. I know a 9-year-old who'd love to hear how her father's finally getting help. She smiled, tears in her eyes. I'd like that. At home, Annabelle launched herself into my arms. Did you find Daddy? Is he going to the hospital? Yes, baby, he's getting help. Real help this time, Delilah added, setting the pizza on the counter. Nancy raised an eyebrow at Delilah's presence, but said nothing as Annabelle dragged her new almost stepmom to see her book collection. You know this might not work, Nancy said quietly. I know. But she needs to see we tried, that sometimes love means making hard choices. Like showing those photos. Like giving someone a chance to change, even when they've hurt you. Annabelle's laugh drifted from her room as she showed Delilah her favourite stories. Stories about redemption, about second chances, about people choosing to be better. My phone buzzed again. A message from Robert. Board-approved medical leave for Kian. Treatment fully covered. You did the right thing. I watched Annabelle teaching Delilah her special pizza eating technique, folding it just so to catch all the toppings. Two people connected by a man who'd hurt them both, finding comfort in each other's strength. Mom, Annabelle called. Can we read my new book? The one about the dad who learns to be brave? Of course, baby. As I joined them, watching my daughter snuggle between me and the woman who could have been her stepmother, I realized something important. Sometimes the biggest act of revenge isn't exposing someone's secrets or destroying their life. Sometimes it's showing them exactly what they could lose, then giving them one last chance to save it. Read the part about being brave again, Annabelle requested, her eyes heavy with sleep. And so we did. 3 people bound by love for a little girl, hoping that somewhere across town, her father was finally finding the courage to be brave too. Not for revenge, not for karma, but for the chance to be worthy of his daughter's love. That's the thing about karma. Sometimes it doesn't just deliver justice. Sometimes it delivers hope.